So the Cardinals now have 2 on, nobody out, and the top of the order coming up. And he takes ball 4, and that'll load him up.
That's to third. They're going to come home and get the out. That's a great play by Ortiz.
Nolan Arenado is in there. Base is still loaded.
And he pops it up. A mile high, foul territory. Ortiz makes the catch, 2 away.
Oh, what a huge out right there.
Burleson. And a fly ball to right center. Inning over. Koenig inherits 3, none score.
Yeah, there's games where you just have to do a much better job against a starter. And you got to create more opportunities against that guy. You got to be able to cash in. The bases loaded situation definitely was an opportunity we got to push there. And we're not getting the big hit. So you can't win ball games scoring 1 run.
I'm out. I want to make an announcement today. I am officially out. There's nothing more that the Cardinals can do to get me back on their bandwagon. I'm done. If they go to the playoffs and win the World Series this year, they will do so without Brandon Kiley buying back in.
All right, ladies and gentlemen.
I will still be skeptical of this team the moment that they are hoisting that trophy that, what's his face, Manfred called a hunk of metal. I will be out at that point and at this point. I'm done. They can't do anything to hurt me anymore, Alex Ferrario.
Yeah, okay.
I watched that game last night, and it was the first time where I said as I was watching, I don't care. I don't care any longer. I am officially apathetic. They've done this to me. They have hurt me too many times. They are now 15-22. If they lose their next 3 games, they will have the exact same record through 40 games this year that they had through 40 games a year ago. And at that point, I was out with that team as well. I'm done. I'm done with
coming
him.
from the guy who
that
is
audio courtesy of Bally Sports Midwest.
Coming from the guy who is standing in front of his girlfriend cheating on him, and he's like, you know what? I'll give her another chance.
That only happened twice.
Yeah, this season. We're like, oh, hey, let's just keep on trucking. I don't believe you. I don't believe you that you're out. You know why?
Yeah, they're going to win tomorrow. They're back!
Because every damn week this Cardinals team does one thing, well, at least not in this last stretch of weeks, but they'll always do one thing that BK's like, there's the optimism. I just dug for gold and
I try to
found
see
it.
the best in people. Generally speaking, I try to see the best in people.
You should be more like me and find the bad in people and just picture them as that.
I still see the good in Alex Ferrario. And if I can still see the good in Alex,
not much.
I see the good in T-Bone too.
Look, man, the reason I don't like reading is I judge books by their cover.
Alex is like a Dementor. He sucks the life out of you. But for me, I still see the good in him.
Call me fat? You call me a Dementor? Say I suck? What's going on
This
here?
Cardinals team,
yesterday.
this Cardinals team, I don't see the good in them any longer. And it happened last night. Let me tell you about
They're
it, Alex.
cockroaches. They won't go away.
No, they have gone away. There was a nuclear bomb that went off, and it blew up everything that was good about them. So, Alex, last night, we're in the top of the 5th inning. Let me sit you on my lap. I'll tell you a little story about the
I'm not sitting
2024
on your
Cardinals
lap.
and when this season officially came to an end.
Made that mistake last time.
I don't
Pedro Bleepin Pajes takes a walk.
Yeah, he does.
Michael Ciani, who has been, I think, their 2nd best hitter over the course of the last week. I'm not kidding. Singles. Brendan Donovan, still a winning baseball player in my mind, takes a walk. The bases are loaded with nobody out. And you have your 2, 3, and 4 hitters coming up to the plate. It's Lars Nootbaar, Nolan Arenado, and Alec Burleson.
That's the bulk of the lineup, I'm told.
Correct. You're down by 4 runs. Again, bases are loaded in the top of the 5th inning. You have just pushed their starter out of the game. You're in the middle of their bullpen. This is where you can really take advantage of them, right, Alex?
That's what I've been told. Heart of the order.
Lars Nootbaar hits the ball so weakly on the ground.
Peak Lars.
That it's not even a productive out. He grounds into a fielder's choice where they throw it to home, and it's a force out at home plate.
Jim Edmonds said, put the ball in play here. And they did it, and he goes, no, not like that.
Nolan Arenado pops up, and it's a foul out.
In the first pitch.
So once again, not even a productive out. And then Alec Burleson gives the ball a ride, and Chip Carey was sure of this one going out of the yard. He was sure of it.
And he takes the ball to right field.
I don't think it even reached the warning track.
That's tough.
Well, the wind killed it.
Game over. Not technically speaking, but game over. Season over. Era over. That was it.
Wow.
That was it.
You're shutting down the next 5 years?
That's all I needed to see, dude. Right then and there, they sucked the life out of me again. So many times this year, I've tried like hell, Alex, to believe in this team. And it's the old quote, right? Just when I think I'm out, they pull me back in. Not anymore. I'm done, dude. There's no more hope with this team. There's no more optimism with this team. So later on today, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. The mic drop features on the 101 ESPN app. It's time for a take purge. We've been holding it in. We do this once, maybe twice a year, depending on how bad the seasons are for our respective teams here in St. Louis. It is time for a take purge, where you get to throw out there anything that you believe in. Once a year, maybe twice, we do this on the air, Alex. And if you've been holding something in, maybe it's just a little crazy, you can say it with zero consequence. The movies come out, everything's in play. Everything. I'm not going to push back against anything you say today, Alex, because you know what? They've done this.
You know what? Don't say that.
They have done this to me. They've done it to you. They've done it to the audience. Take purge. It's a take purge today on BK and Ferrario. So if you've got something you want to throw in, the mic drop features on the 101 ESPN app. Get it all out there. Let it loose. Let it fly. Let's hear what you have to say about your Cardinals.
I think T-Bone and I would make a better midday show than BK and I.
On the Cardinals. On the Cardinals.
On the Cardinals. On the Cardinals.
Where am I going? Am I going to mornings, afternoons?
Don't say you're not going to push back, because you're so going to push back on a mic.
You're going to push back on everything, man.
I'm serious. I'm not doing it.
Someone's going to call Mason Wynn not a winning ball player, and you're going to have to sit there.
Somebody's going to say Brendan Donovan is not a winning ball player that you just said.
That's stupid. They wouldn't say that.
See?
They don't believe that.
Someone is going to say that the era of Cardinals baseball is not dead.
Well, that's also pretty dumb. This is done. It's over.
This whole purge is stupid. Here's the thing. I'm with BK. Last night, technically, I turned the game off after Sonny Gray gave up the home run in the first inning because, well, we all know that the Cardinals aren't scoring 3 runs. But, you know, I indulged myself. I jumped back in after bedtime was completed with my girls. And then I saw not just the bases loaded with nobody out, I saw the previous inning with 2 guys on and nobody out.
I didn't even mention that.
And T-Bone, I don't know if you remember this moment on BK and Ferrario, but somebody really intelligent on this show brought up the fact that the Cardinals don't have clutch hitters and they can't hit with runners in scoring position. Probably Lisa.
She says it every day on her text line.
And then
God bless her.
There was somebody else on this show that has a tone problem that yelled at the smart individual saying, it's not runners in scoring position, that's the problem. It's hitting, that's the problem.
Yeah,
Both were true.
Both were very true.
Both were true.
But the first opportunity when you had nobody out and runners at first and second base and did not score a run, that was when I was like, cool, I can turn the game off and watch the rest of the hockey game because the Cardinals will not come back in this. They gave you hope. They gave BK an opportunity to pull on that rope and tug of war. He's like, oh, Alec Burleson, he's pulling me back in. And then BK just let go.
As he should.
He said, Jesus, take the wheel, and it was over.
Yeah. I mean, I've been at them since the White Sox series, because if you lose 2 or 3 to the freaking White Sox, you must not be a winning ball club.
Mine was Oakland.
And just to see them last night not come through in the clutch, and just some of the statistics that are pouring out throughout this right now are pathetic. Guys, their slash line with the bases loaded. This is courtesy of Derek Gould. The slash line with the bases loaded, 107, 143, 179. Just for context sake, Derek Gould referenced a 1966 pitcher that had that slash line batting that season. That's pathetic.
Can I put one more with T-Bones? Because this one's courtesy of Bernie Miklas that I saw this morning. Cards are 1-6 in May. This month, Arenado and Herrera are combined for 5 for 10 with runners in scoring position. Just forget about what they did last night. Every other Cardinal in the month of May not named Arenado and Herrera with runners in scoring position, 2 for 37, which... calculator, 0.054 batting average with runners in scoring position of everybody on this roster not named Arenado and Ivan Herrera.
How about this one, too?
Oh, my God, we got more?
Paul Goldschmidt, Nolan Gorman, for some reason Dylan Carlson, have had 48 at-bats this month. We are 10 days into May. They don't have a hit. They are 0 for 48 combined.
My daughter has more hits off of the T-ball in my backyard than those guys do in the month of May. And
they probably couldn't hit it off the team.
And BK is still trying to find optimism with this team.
The Cardinals, have lost 5 games in a row once again. It's their 6th such losing streak since the start of the 2021 season. They have 6 5-game losing streaks since the start of the 2021 season. They had 6 such streaks between the 2012 and 2020 seasons combined.
My gosh.
I'm picking up good vibrations.
I don't know what to say anymore, guys. If you're holding out hope, God bless you.
Good for you.
That's all I got to say. I have no more hope. I have no more optimism. I have nothing more to sell you. I tried. I really wanted to believe in this team. I thought the offense was going to be really good. I find the pitching experiment still to be kind of interesting. I don't know. I mean, clearly it's not going to work because the offense is so bad. They never gave it a chance. But I think there's something to the idea that you need innings. You need certainty. You need guys that are going to go out there and make more starts for you over the course of a year. I think there's something to that. I think we're seeing it in Seattle right now. That they're doing it with younger players. They've got a better version of what you're trying to accomplish. But I think there's something to this. I think there's something to what Philly's got. Now, they have Zach Wheeler, so that helps. They have Aaron Nola, that helps. But Ranger Suarez is a guy that they've developed, and he's just a really good number 3 starter, man. A really good number 3 starter. And they've got dudes that they can trust to make 25 starts over the course of the year. I think there's something to the philosophy that the Cardinals had with building this rotation. I think their bullpen is really good. None of it matters, dude. If you can't hit, it's over for you. So that's where the Cardinals are at. Today is the Take Purge kind of a day here on BK and Ferrario. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. The mic drop feature is on the 101 ESPN app. We want to hear from you throughout the day today. We will hear from Avila, former Major League Baseball general manager, as he joins the show coming up at 11:30. Want to ask him, because he was a part of a rebuild in Detroit. At what point do you make the determination this era of baseball for our organization is over and it is time for us to go into a full-blown rebuild? We'll talk to Al Avila about that coming up at 11:30. But coming up next, we finally heard from somebody yesterday within the Cardinals organization that admitted just how frustrated they are. I'll let you hear what Bill DeWitt III had to say about that next year on 101 ESPN.
This team is done. This team is awful. I can't watch this crap no more. Fire Oliver Marmol for God's sake. Look what the Phillies did in 2022. They fired him and they went on a roll. Do something for God's sake. I can't watch this. This is awful. This is pathetic.
Hard to push back against that one with Alex and T-Bone on BK. That was Seth on the mic drop feature. It's a Take Purge day here on BK and Ferrario. We'll give you ours coming up at 12 o'clock. Hearing yours throughout the day today. We'll hear from Avila, former Major League Baseball general manager, coming up here in about 15 minutes. But Alex, we did hear from somebody yesterday within the organization. It was via the Killcoin conversation on scoopswithdannymac.com. And a long conversation about, public financing for stadiums, what the future looks like for Busch Stadium. But eventually they did get into Bill DeWitt III's frustration level with what he's watching right now with the St. Louis Cardinals. It's a long clip, but I think it's worth hearing it in its entirety. Here's Bill DeWitt III on what his frustration level is right now.
Oh, it's definitely high. I mean, we're in last place in the Central. We all believe, and I think even our fans believe, that this is a better team than this. When you just look at it, there's some bright spots on the team. I mean, Mason Wynn, who we were all like, oh, God, he's the key. If he can hit 250, play great D, we'll be fine. Well, I mean, he's done great, and then some other guys have tailed off. And I think the approach to our offseason pitching issues, which were the key problem last year, largely have worked out. I like our bullpen, so there's some positives there. It's just, early on, a lot of the guys aren't hitting at the same time. And, we've lost some close games and weird games. So I remain optimistic but concerned. I think that wouldn't be fair to say it's not, I don't think it's panic button right now, but it's like, come on, guys, we're better than this, and we should be able to climb into this race.
This isn't panic button yet? You heard T-Bone say the numbers. 3 of your guys haven't had a hit in this month, and it's not panic mode yet? This is why I
the worst record through the first 37 games of a season by the Cardinals in the past 50 years. The worst was last year with 13 wins in the first 37 games. Tied for second, 1978 and 1980. They had 14 wins through the first 37 games. Tied for third worst, if you want to go that, I guess technically fourth worst, over the last 50 years, this point in the season, 76, 86, 95, and this year. So for the past two seasons, in the first 37 games, you have two of the 6 worst records in the last 50 years for the Cardinals.
And it's
panic time.
This is why I really... I don't think DeWitt saying that does anything. I really don't care that you come on talk shows and say that, yeah, you're frustrated and, yeah, this needs to be better. You need to do something. And we've gotten to the point now where it's like, well, what can you do about this? You got to make some type of move. You got to make some type of trade to ignite, some type of firing to ignite some conversation, because right now you going on a radio and saying, yeah, we're frustrated. Yeah, this is not good. We're better than this. We need to get going. You can keep saying that until the end of May, and you're still going to be at the bottom of the NL Central. You're still going to look like a team that doesn't have a direction, and you're still going to be stuck in a position where you're saying, well, we didn't know what happened this season, and there was really nothing for us to do.
I think it's already too late. We heard that mic drop from Seth, right? And he said there's got to be something that is done. Look at what the Phillies did. I think it's too late to be what the Phillies were. And I know they're only 7 games under 500 right now, so maybe I'm just flat out wrong on this. That's possible. But I think if you were going to make a move, it needed to happen after that White Sox series. Now I think this team is too far in its own head.
But it's not too late to make a move to point your organization in the right direction.
That's fair. I think there's some truth to that. I just... salvaging this season,
yeah, that's
again,
over.
I don't think you can. I don't think there's a way to get this thing back on track in a way that puts you back into the playoffs. I mentioned this to you guys yesterday. According to Baseball Reference, the Cardinals have a 0.2% chance of being able to make the postseason this year. 0.2. Technically still mathematically alive through the first 37 games, which is great. You're less than 25% of the way through the season, and mathematically, you're still alive. But realistically speaking, I mentioned this the other day, there were 8 teams that had started the season this poorly that ended up making the playoffs in the last 20 years. And the Cardinals were the worst hitting team of any of those 8. They're done. There's no getting this thing back on track for 2024. Our attention, once again, for the second consecutive season, is pointing towards 2025 and beyond, instead of talking about how do you salvage this year. And that's what's so frustrating. So when I hear Bill DeWitt the third come out and say frustration level is high, but there's no panic that's set in yet. Why? Why isn't there panic? I understand you have to, if you're John Mozeliak, you have to steer the ship, right? And if you're Ollie Marmol, you have to be on your player side. You should always have your players back. But if you're the owner, if you're the chairman of this team, it's okay to come out and say, listen, we expected this to be better, and right now the product on the field is unacceptable. And if it doesn't get turned around, yeah, we're going to have to start looking at what we can do to inspire some kind of confidence, because what's happening right now isn't working very clearly. Like that's the kind of thing that needs to be said.
Yeah, and to your point on like this season being over, I think the most frustrating part isn't what I'm watching on the field. Like, yes, the product is terrible. I read off their numbers with the bases loaded. Guys, the problem is the team knows it's over. Like, how do you not make a change when that's the case? You know, and look, at this point, I probably agree. Change probably isn't going to do anything. They probably can't be the Phillies that when they fired Joe Girardi and hired their manager that's currently there. And they
is that
got
2022? Is that when that was?
Yeah, because they got to the World Series that year, I believe. So 22 or 21, but I think it was 22 because they got to the World Series with him.
They were 11-15.
Yeah, so they did it much earlier, to your point there. So, but at this point, like, guys, you can tell that everybody in the organization knows it's over. Like, hearing Ollie Marmol's postgame, and this isn't a shot against Ollie, like, I think he's just accepted that the season's over already. He's not in a upset mood, and I wouldn't expect him to be. He seems to have come to the sense of, hey, man, the offense isn't hitting, so we're probably not going to win a lot of games, and I can't give you any more answers as to why these guys aren't hitting because I'm not in the batter's box for them. Here, seeing just how the locker room sounds, seeing the reaction on the field when they're missing on these opportunities, it just feels like it is over. And I understand that making a move at this point probably doesn't save the season. You got to give the fan base something if you're ownership. And this fan base is ready to have somebody fired. And at this point, it needs to happen. Like, they get swept this week and they drop 3 or 4 to Milwaukee. Somebody shouldn't be flying to LA with them. That's just where we're at with the organization. They have got to make a change for change's sake.
That's my thing is, like, what's the next step? Because I keep hearing about these injuries and stuff. Man, I don't want to hear about that. Look across the way right now. You're in Milwaukee and you're looking at another team. Look at their pitching rotation. They just got Christian Yelich back from the injured list. Look at the players that they're missing. Their best reliever has been on the shelf all season long. And they're finding a way not only to get through it, they're thriving. They've got dudes in their lineup that most casual baseball fans have never heard of. And they're finding a way to break through and continue to have success. They lost their manager that people view as one of the best in the business. And the new guy comes in, hits the ground running. I don't want to hear any more excuses. I'm done with it. Wilson Contreras going down should not completely alter the trajectory of the season. Dylan Carlson and Tommy Edman, those are going to be the injuries that we look at and we're like, but wait, look at those. Riley O'Brien and Keenan Middleton. No, man, get out of here. Steven Matz, like, these are the things that we're talking about that have set the season sideways. No, the reason why the season has gone sideways is because your best players aren't playing like your best players. That's it. Full stop.
I mean, you're not going to like this because I know you like the individual that I'm about to bring up. I think the next step is firing Ollie. The next step is firing Ollie and Turner Ward, or it's John Mozeliak stepping down from his position. Because, and again, I hate calling for people's jobs, but you got to make a change. And as much as I believe, and look, I am a strong advocate for this is a player problem, never a coach problem. But at some point, if the players aren't listening to the coach, you got to move on from the coach. You got to put a different voice in front of them that maybe they're willing to listen to. It's why Craig Berube was fired. None of us believed he should have been fired, but guess what? The team wasn't working, and you needed to make a decision. And if you don't want to move on from Ollie, if you believe Ollie is the guy, then John Mozeliak needs to step down from his position and put somebody else in a position to oversee this team heading into a very critical trade deadline for this Cardinals team.
Somebody on the text line said, BK, we're only 3.5 games back in the wild card race. Stop being so negative.
And that's one of those that's holding up.
Yeah,
Good for them.
He is not purging today.
Ma'am, I respect where you're coming from. I don't have it in me anymore. I don't. I was in your spot as recently as a few days ago. And then they lost a series against the Chicago White Sox. They got their butts whipped in a couple of games against the Mets. And last night they looked embarrassed with their best pitcher on the mound going into a series against the team that is currently leading the division. I don't care about who you're playing anymore. I don't care where you're at in the standings anymore. It's about watching this team play on a night in, night out basis. They're not good enough. This team, as currently constructed, is not good enough to do anything that gets them back into a race. I don't care how far back they are. They're 7 games back in the division, 3.5 back in a wild card spot. I don't care. The teams around them are better than them. That's it. They're better than them, and they don't have the talent. They don't have the production internally to be able to get this thing turned around. Maybe that changes if they make sweeping changes within the organization. I don't think that's happening, and after hearing that comment from Bill DeWitt III, I feel even less confident that there are any kind of meaningful changes that are coming in the immediate future. By the way, I do want to correct something that I said earlier today. I mentioned that when the Phillies decided to make the change, I gave the wrong record for them when they decided to make that change. They were 22-29. It was on June 1st that they decided to fire Joe Girardi. They put Rob Thompson in charge. They go 65-46 the rest of the way, end up going to the World Series that year. So it was 51 games into the season that the Phillies made that change, 7 games under 500 at the time of the change. And then they ended up going on that miraculous run the rest of the way. So that was June 1st. We're about 2 weeks away, 3 weeks away now from when they decided to make that change. We'll see if the Cardinals are only 7 games under 500.
That's what I was going to say. I'd be shocked if they're 7 games beyond 500 at that point. They're probably going to be 10 plus, I would think.
In 15 minutes, we'll get to Ask Us Anything, 314-399-9646. But coming up next, we're going out to the 101 ESPN hotline because Al Avila is going to be on the line. He's a former Major League Baseball general manager. He has seen what it looks like firsthand to go through a legitimate rebuild. Is it time for the Cardinals to consider it? We'll talk to him next year on 101 ESPN.
Terry Hendrickson here with a Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Cardinals fall to the Brewers last night 7-1 in Game 2 of their 4-game set is tonight at 7:10. Lance Lynn will get the start for St. Louis. Milwaukee has yet to announce a starter for today's game. The Sports Center update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
It's not a fun time to be a Cardinals fan right now. They are 15-22 so far this season. It's one of the 6 worst records through the first 37 games of a season in the last 50 years for this organization. Last year, of course, being the worst record at this point in the season in the last 50 years. And with that as the backdrop to our conversation, we go out to the 101 ESPN hotline to be joined by Al Avila, former Major League Baseball general manager, was that position with the Detroit Tigers for nearly a decade. Now you can watch him on MLB Network as well. Al, we appreciate the time as always. I wanted to talk with you because there's a conversation that has started here in St. Louis that does not happen very often, which is it time for this organization to commit to a legitimate rebuild for the first time in, 30 years? Al, you've been in the position where you had to make one of those decisions before with the Tigers. What goes into that kind of a decision of deciding it is time for a rebuild here?
Yeah, well, every club is different, in the way they operate. And I look at the Cardinals really very much like I look maybe at like the Yankees and the Red Sox. That's a fan base that expects your team to be in contention every day or every year and make the playoffs with a chance to win a World Series. And that's been pretty consistent. But what goes into the decision to make a total rebuild is really something that happens over a period of years. Okay, so basically, number one, you need the backing of ownership to know you're going to struggle, and the fans are not going to be happy about it. So that's the first thing that comes to mind. But the main thing here is if you have a roster with full of veterans or older players that are not producing to what their salaries are, your payroll is at its maximum, and the team is not winning, not producing, and you see a decline in the performance of your older players, and you don't have a young nucleus at the major league level, and you don't have the up and coming prospects that are close enough to help the major league club right now, then you're in big trouble because now you have a payroll problem. You have declining veteran players, and you have a lack of prospects. When you have that perfect storm of negativity, that's when you have to start saying, okay, maybe we really have to scale back and start it all over again. But those are extremes, and that's the only way I would look at total rebuild.
So, Al, when people use the phrase rebuild, I always feel like fans don't actually understand what goes into a full-blown rebuild. So we're speaking with somebody who's gone through this in the front office. What's the timeline? What's the difficulty of trying to accomplish a full-blown rebuild?
Well, the main thing here is if in a full-blown rebuild is, you're bringing down payroll because your team is not producing enough. And so it's harder to trade, players that are not producing well with high salaries. So you're trying to get the best return you can. That's a very difficult thing to do, number one. Obviously, if you have a couple of losing seasons, you're going to be picking higher in the draft. However, those drafted players, if you're picking, high in the draft in the first rounds, whatever, it doesn't automatically mean that player is going to get to the big leagues in a couple of years and be a star. It takes time for a player to develop. It takes time for a player to, when he gets to the big leagues, to actually, become the player that you expect him to be. Sometimes it takes a few years. So these are all the things that you would go through. And obviously, if you're running a team like the Cardinals, the thing you would try to avoid the most is a total rebuild, because what you would hope that you would do over the years is always maintain a young nucleus of players coming through the system that at the major league level you have that nucleus of young players, and then you bring in or trade veteran players as needed. And there's many ways of acquiring players. Players are picked up, on the Rule 5 draft. They're picked up, obviously, at minor league free agent signings. You're picked up internationally. So you could always, keep on feeding the organization of those supporting players that you need to get through a season.
Avila joining us here on 101 ESPN, former Major League Baseball general manager with the Detroit Tigers. Al, I did want to ask you one thing that we're getting a lot of right now on the text line. I'm sure you've seen this in your history as well. When there are struggles, the first thing that people point to is the manager. And the Cardinals have now gone through last season where they lost 91 games, and this year they're already 7 games back in the division. Al, what goes into a decision as a general manager of when to make that kind of a change at manager? The Cardinals players seem to still support him, but at what point do you say, you know what, we have to make a change here?
Yeah, that's one of the most difficult decisions of a general manager, to tell you the truth, because a lot of it, a lot of things go into it, because players have to be responsible for themselves too, and they have to take control of their own culture in that dugout and in the clubhouse. But the manager, obviously, it's his team, and he's the one that has to really monitor where that team is going, and trying to take the course of personalities of where they're going. But also, that communication with the general manager is very important, because the general manager needs to know what's going on, because he needs to know what changes to make. Sometimes you see a player traded and you're going, man, why would they trade that guy? Well, there might be something going on in that clubhouse that, this is not the kind of guy we want in this clubhouse. And then maybe it's a player that's the problem. I remember going, when we first got to Detroit as the assistant general manager, we had a nucleus of players that it was bad news when we got there, and supposedly they were good players, and they had some run of some wins, but it was not a good culture. So you had to move players, and we had to move players that the fans in some cases were they were popular, and it was a tough thing to do, but it was the only way to get back into a winning culture. So a lot of it, yes, rests on the manager, but a lot of it also, is a working relationship with the general manager and making the changes needed through the season that is going to improve the team today and down the road.
And Al, that can't be an easy thing to try and evaluate, to find out, like, hey, is this individual player a problem for our clubhouse? How do you go about that process, finding out?
Well, again, communication, okay? Because if you're the manager, in that team, and you have, the manager should have a lot of say in what goes on, because he's in that clubhouse, he's in that dugout, and he sees what the players do every day. So there's got to be good communication with the general manager. And saying that, the general manager also has to be aware. That's why, sometimes, I see some general managers, they don't travel with the team at all. I think that's a big mistake. I think, because sometimes when you're on the road with the team, you see a lot more than just at home, when the guys would just go home and come back to the ballpark the next day. So as a general manager, you have to be aware of what's going on around you. And again, that's part of communicating with your manager, communicating with your coaches, coaching staff, and communicating, quite frankly, you might have a veteran player or two that you really trust, and that communication is very important too. So you have to be involved in every aspect of the game.
Al Avila is our guest for another couple of minutes here on BK and Ferrario. Al, back in 2017, you had a 34-year-old Miguel Cabrera. In the previous season, he was an MVP candidate for you guys. Top 10 in votes. Once again, hit above 300. Finished the year with 38 home runs. Really good player in the middle of your lineup. And then 2017, it fell off of a cliff. He hit 250 for the season, had a slugging percentage below 400, and was a below-league average hitter. Finished with 16 home runs, and the power was just gone from that moment forward. What happened there? Because it feels like we're seeing something similar right now here in St. Louis with both Paul Goldschmidt and Nolan Arenado. So I'm curious if there are potentially any similarities as to what happened with Miguel Cabrera.
Well, unfortunately, some of these long-term contracts, that's the way they end up. It's a rarity that you see a guy, sign for 10 years or so, and all of a sudden he's producing that 10th year, the same way he was producing the first 5. It's almost impossible because as you age, and players age differently, but as you age, that you're not going to get that production, and a lot of guys do fall off the cliff, and that's what you're left holding that bag, and it's a matter of the way that you can't really stop that, but what you try to do is again have that nucleus of players that can pick up the slack. In one case too, you might like the Tampa is a great example of they will trade a player before this happens. It's a team that doesn't give those long-term contracts, and when a player is getting to that point, they trade them before it's too late. But there's some organizations, Cardinals are one of them, that won't be able to do that. In Detroit, it would be hard for us to trade Miguel Cabrera because Mr. Ilitch wanted to win, and he was going to be a Hall of Famer. He's going to be a Tiger for life, and that was it. So you kept that guy, and you knew what you had to do, and so you move forward.
When you have that, Al, I have to imagine that first season, it probably was for you guys similar to what it is right now in St. Louis, where you're watching it early on as he's going through some struggles, and you're thinking to yourself, well, this is a guy that every year hits 300. He's going to finish with 30 home runs because that's what Miguel Cabrera did. Did it take you guys a while before you realized, like, oh, this is just what it's going to be now? At what point did you come to that realization?
Well, I mean, I never thought that he was going to get back to his heyday. I mean, let me put it this way. I was there for the first long-term contract that he signed and the extension that we gave him the next time. And in my heart, I mean, in my mind, I knew that eventually this was going to happen. And when I took over, I almost predicted it to myself as well. It's going to fall in my hands. And so, and just look again, you live with that because in other words, you're not going to be able to trade them for many reasons. And what you do is, and I remember I have a great relationship. I have a great relationship with Miguel Cabrera because I signed him. And so my main thing was to stay in communication with him to make sure that his head was in the right place every time he came to the ballpark. And number two is to, mentor the young players, which he did very well, and particularly the Latin players, and help the team any way he could other than, his offense, and which, we knew that it was what it was. So that communication with that veteran player to make sure that, he was almost like another coach per se, and that's what you wanted to at least get out of him.
Hey, Al, we appreciate the time, man. For those that are in the audience right now, Al is on vacation currently with his family, so it's unbelievable that you are willing to do this for us. We sincerely appreciate it. Always enjoy getting your perspective on things that you've been in that chair for to make these kinds of difficult decisions. So thanks so much for hopping on with us today. Enjoy the rest of your vacation. We'll talk with you again soon, my friend.
You're welcome, and I recommend Zion National Park, by the way.
I like it. I'm already going to book it now, Al.
There we go. Al, appreciate the time, man. Enjoy yourself out there.
You got it.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Appreciate it. That's Al Avila joining us here on 101 ESPN, former Tigers general manager, of course, with MLB Network as well. I think that when you look at what happened to Miguel Cabrera, Alex, now, he's a very different player, very different individual, very different career than what we've seen here in St. Louis with both Nolan Arenado and Paul Goldschmidt. Different bodies. Everybody ages differently, and Al mentioned that. But I think it is instructive of how quickly things can fall off of a cliff. Dude, in 2016, he was an MVP candidate, one of the best hitters in the league. 315 average, 400 on base percentage, 38 homers, 108 RBI. And then the next season comes back, 250, below 400 slugging percentage. And then the next season, he played 38 games, was above league average offensively, but played 38 games. 2019, below league average offensively. And then for the rest of his career, he was a below league average hitter. It was just over for him offensively. And still a good dude. People in Detroit love Miguel Cabrera. That dude is a folk hero in that city, and they will always appreciate what he was able to do, Triple Crown, all that stuff. But it was done. And people thought that guy would age gracefully as an offensive player. Maybe not offensively, but offensively, they thought that was one of the players that would age kind of similarly to Albert Pujols, where it would be graceful. It didn't happen for him. And the same thing appears to be happening right now in St. Louis with both Nolan Arenado offensively and Paul Goldschmidt to different degrees, but both of those guys are not the same guys that they were a year ago.
Yeah, and I don't know about you guys, but Al describing what it looks like when you know you have to go into a rebuild.
Dude, he was describing the 2024 Cardinals.
Did anybody have deja vu? Because it's like I feel like you're describing what we're living right now.
Yeah.
But
the problem is the Cardinals should have a young core. And that's what's weird is like.
Well, and that goes back to just the developing talent, I feel like, because most teams are able to develop them by this point. Here's the number one point, though, that he made, why it's like, cool, it won't happen. His first answer, ownership has to be on board with it. Yeah. And that's what I go back to. Like, you could scream from the rooftops that you want to rebuild. Doesn't matter.
And I think, and we've heard people say this for different organizations, like, there are just organizations that don't rebuild. Yankees are one of them, and he mentioned them. You know, the Cowboys are probably one that shouldn't rebuild in football. For hockey, it's the Toronto Maple Leafs. Like, there are organizations in each league that just cannot enter a rebuild. And I think whether you want to call that an ownership thing or just the history of the St. Louis Cardinals, they fall into that category of a team that just does not rebuild. And I think that's when he said that, that was where I went, okay, I guess this has to be a pivot year, but I don't know necessarily where you go from here. Even though, to your point, totally described the Cardinals as a rebuild team.
That's when you have to look at if you're going to pivot and try and retool this on the fly, you got to have an aggressive president of baseball operations.
He's Alex Ferrario. That's Tanner Hendrickson, and I'm Brandon Kiley. If you guys missed any of our conversation with Al Avila, I think it's well worth your time. 101ESPN.com, the free 101 ESPN app is where you can go to find it. It's all presented by Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers. Coming up in about 15 minutes,
the text.
It's time for a take purge. If you guys have anything that you want to get out on the Cardinals, whether it's something that's just totally outlandish or a totally reasonable take, we're not pushing back today. It's a take purge. We do this once, maybe twice a year, depending on how the season goes. Feels like we've been doing it a lot over the last 2 years. We'll give you some of our thoughts that are just unfiltered. We can't be held accountable for these. It's a take purge.
Are they all sports or is it anything?
I mean, I feel like we should keep this within the Cardinals specifically. That's what this is for. But if you've got something else you got to get off your chest, man, more than welcome to do it. That's coming up in 15 minutes. The mic drop features on the 101 ESPN app. Ask Us Anything is next here on 101 ESPN. Hey, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for Ask Us Anything. In about 10 minutes, we'll get into the Take Purge.
Oh, baby.
We do this once, maybe twice a year. What's your biggest Cardinals thing that you'd like to get out there right now? Biggest Cardinals opinion, your take. There's no consequences for this. You can get it out into the ether. It's as if it never happened. You ever seen The Purge? Commit whatever crime you've been waiting for all year long. It doesn't exist. There are no rules. So go ahead and get it out there. We'll get them in via the mic drop feature on the 101 ESPN app. We'll hear from some of you coming up in just a little bit. But let's get to Ask Us Anything, Alex, right here from the 314. Does Yachty seem like a yes man to you? Because that's what it feels like the Cardinals front office looks for in a manager. He will never coach here with this current front office. Agree or disagree?
Agree.
I think he would accept this manager job in a heartbeat if he was offered.
Oh, he would take the job, but there would be a lot of philosophical differences.
Sure.
The reason being, I think you need a new front office that's not going to demand that from the manager.
Did you read Ben Frederickson's piece earlier
I thought
today?
It was outstanding. He's right.
For those that haven't read it,
yeah.
He basically asked the question, if you want Yachty to be the manager right now, shouldn't you also be asking why he hasn't been around?
Yeah. And I agree with the line that he basically said, like, look, for people that are screaming that they want Yadier Molina to be the manager, I don't know if he has earned the right to be the Cardinals manager because he hasn't been around. He was supposed to be the assistant to the president of baseball operations. He was supposed to be working with the catching. He was supposed to be in the dugout. This was going to be one of the leaders that Ollie surrounded himself with. And he has said, nope, don't want to be here.
And the last time that we saw him in a Cardinals uniform, he left and disappeared to go back to Puerto Rico to hang out with his basketball team. Like, I just don't know that that's the... If there is somebody within the past 20 years of Cardinals lore that should be in that job, it's, in my opinion, Albert Pujols. Albert is much more deserving of that position right now than Yadier Molina, in my opinion, personally. So that's just where I come from, but... that's where I'm at. All right, from the 314, guys, I'm just kind of wondering, at some point, what are some of the best vacation spots that you go to in the state of Missouri? I just want to get away from everything, unwind for a few days, maybe up to a week.
Branson, baby.
Oh, no.
Branson, baby. You got everything. You've got golf. You've got hiking. Great culinary options. You've got fun options. Silver Dollar City was rated higher than Disney World.
That's ridiculous.
And it's cheaper significantly.
Well, that's true.
Branson is your place to go. Go check it out.
Table Rock Lake, if you're going that direction, just go to Table Rock Lake.
What? It's Branson, man.
Yeah,
Branson. And then you go to Table Rock.
Avoid that. Go to Table Rock instead. Wow. Now, coming up here pretty soon, you'll be able to go down to one of the rivers, Merrimack, whatever, go on a float trip down there. That's another spot that you could go. There's a few different areas, whether it's in this side of the state or if you want to go closer to the middle of Missouri. There's some wineries that you can go to, spend a little bit of time there. If you
I've heard only Illinois is incredible too.
If you want to go a little further south, Hot Springs. There's a bunch of different stuff you can do. Huzzah. Good spots in the Missouri.
Don't listen
area.
to BK slander Branson, Missouri. It's the best.
Avoid Branson. Just go to Table Rock instead, especially if you just want to get away from stuff.
You
want to relax.
A jerk.
What three players not currently hurt or on the current major league team do you believe are the key to the Cardinals' future success, Alex? Three players that are on the current team that you believe are key to the future Cardinals' success.
Mason Wynn, Jordan Walker, Wilson Contreras.
I'd add Nolan Gorman. I would say Wynn, Walker, Gorman would be
I don't think
three.
Gorman is.
Interesting. Those would be the three that I would have. All right, final one here from the 314. Alex, I keep hearing that Alex Steen was involved among those that were interviewing Drew Bannister as the next head coach. Do you think that he has a future as a general manager in the NHL? And if so, do you think it could be with the Blues?
Yes and yes. There's no question in my mind that Alexander Steen is going to be a manager somewhere. Because anytime you talked to him, you felt like he was a general manager grooming himself. And then as soon as his career was over, he went straight to Sweden and was a part of the front office with the team over in Sweden. And now he's a part of the inner circle with Doug Armstrong. And I do believe, I don't know how much longer Doug Armstrong is going to want to be the president of hockey operations, but my guess is when he decides to call it, that's going to be an Alexander Steen moment that says, hey, I'm ready for this role.
He's Alex. That's T-Bone on BK. Coming up in 15 minutes, we'll hear from Jordan Walker. He made his first public comments yesterday down in Memphis about what it's like to be down in Memphis right now and not at the big league level, and what he views as the importance of getting the ball in the air. He'll explain that coming up in about 15 minutes or so. But coming up next, we do this a couple of times a year. It is time for a Take Purge. The mic drop features on the 101 ESPN app. The YouTube chat is off and running right now at youtube.com/101 ESPN STL. You have a take, purge it out of you coming up next here on 101 ESPN. With Alex and T-Bone on BK, it's time for a Take Purge because the St. Louis Cardinals have done it again. They are a 15-22. It's one of the 6 worst starts to a Cardinals season in the past 50 years, Alex. They're 7 games out of first place in the division. Yeah, they're only 3.5 out of the wild card. I don't care. This team is playing bad baseball right now. Yesterday, even Nolan Arenado, an uncharacteristic play where he should have had the out at third as a guy's run into third base. He doesn't tag him, though, misses him, and then ends up getting the runner at first. It leads to that big inning where Milwaukee's able to hit a home run a couple of batters later. They should have been out of the inning should have been out of it before they had to throw more pitches with Sonny Gray. Shouldn't have ended up costing them. I think it was 3 runs at the time. But instead, they keep the inning going. Home run. Boom. You're down early. That was bad. And then bases loaded later on. Nobody out. 2, 3, 4 coming up at the plate. They're not able to come through. This season's over, in my opinion. So it is time for a take purge. We do this a couple of times a year. It's very simple. It's just like the movie, right? You've seen The Purge?
I have. Very bloody.
You wait all year long, and once a year, you get to commit any crime you'd like, and there are no rules. There are no ramifications that come of it. No consequences. Throw whatever it is that you went out there into the ether, and nobody can hold you accountable for it. Again, this will not be played in the future. This is... Get it all out there. Get it off of your chest. It is officially time, T-Bone, for a take purge. Can you play my siren for us? This is the opening to every time that we do a take purge.
Oh, my God, yes.
This is not a test. This is the official announcement of the purge, the annual purge sanctioned by the government of
Alex,
BK and Ferrario.
I will allow you to do the honors.
Oh, I'm starting this off?
Would you like to kick us off with your first take in the annual Cardinals take purge?
You know what? I would, BK. I would like to kick this one off because my first take on this annual purge day of the Cardinals is the front office needs to step down. The man at the top needs to stand up and say, this has gone poorly. It has not gone in the direction that I envisioned it going, mostly because the players have stunk. And I don't believe that I can lead this team to where they need to go. So, with tons of people around me, whether it's Michael Gersh, whether it's Randy Flores, maybe it is Chaim Bloom, who took over to help our pitching staff. Somebody else needs to step into this position and try and direct this Cardinals team to where they need to go. Love the Cardinals, hasn't worked, but this is not working. Because the fact that we are still with the same voice trying to direct this team to the promised land where they have been lost in the woods for what feels like the last 4 years, there needs to be a change at the top for this Cardinals team.
My take purge for today. It's a good one.
Are you telling yourself it was a good one, or are you telling me it was a good one?
No, yours was a good one. I liked that.
You seem like the kind of guy who would compliment himself.
Paul Goldschmidt and Nolan Arenado aren't winners. They're not guys that can lead your team to anything meaningful, and they have shown that their entire careers. Nolan Arenado, the one season here in St. Louis in which he was a legitimate MVP candidate, Albert Pujols was there as the alpha. He was the dude that everybody was looking to. All of the attention was on Albert's chase to get to a historic home run number. That was the attention. The attention was not on Nolan. The pressure was not on Nolan. It was on Albert. That was the dude. Paul Goldschmidt, the attention that year in which he was the MVP of the National League wasn't on him. There was no pressure on those two guys. The pressure was on the dude going for history. And so they were able to take their seats in the backdrop. They are not guys that are number ones. They are like Kevin Durant in the NBA. Kevin Durant, when he's been a number one on every team in his entire NBA career, has failed to achieve the ultimate greatness. But when he went to a team where he got to fade into the background a little bit, just be a number two, be a number three. Steph Curry was the leader of the Golden State Warriors, and he was able to fit in where he got in. He then was able to achieve the greatness that he was looking for. Now, he didn't feel fulfilled by it, just like Nolan Arenado no longer felt fulfilled by being the guy in Colorado or being the guy here in St. Louis. Paul Goldschmidt didn't feel fulfilled, wasn't going to get the contract from Arizona. Kevin Durant has had to move around time and time and time again. Kevin Durant is to the NBA what Goldie and Arenado are to the St. Louis Cardinals. That's my take purge for today. I've been pushing back against this for years. I thought it was nonsense. Man, at some point, I got to look at the evidence that's put in front of me and say to myself, man, people were right. People were right about those two guys. And for whatever reason, when they are the front-facing individuals on a team, your team cannot get to the ultimate level of success. And it's in part because of them. I have to admit it at this point.
Yeah. I think you're spot on with it. I think that's a very honest purge, and there's no pushback there. Can I throw another one in? Because I just came up with another one since it's Purge Day. Apparently, I have a lot of sour feelings these days. I don't think Ali Marmol is a leader. I don't think Ali Marmol is a winning manager. I think he is a guy that benefited as a first-year manager from having 2 Hall of Famers on his team that took the team by the horns and led them to where they needed to get to. And when it push came to shove, when he was the one that was supposed to help them, he made bad decisions in the playoffs, and it costed them their games. Now, offensively, it was bad, but I also look, and yes, we talk about how managers and coaches, it is on the players. But at some point, there has to be a overseeing voice in a clubhouse and a locker room that when things are bad, can take a group and put them in a positive mindset. And we saw last year multiple 10-game losing streaks from a Cardinals team that snowballed so bad that even you point at the players and say, this is on you guys. Absolutely. But now we are seeing it again. When things go bad, yes, Ollie, I understand that there's only so much you can do, but you were put together a roster that was supposed to win, and now they're losing, and they look like a bunch of lost puppies in a box on the side of the road while it's raining.
All right. That's 2 takes.
I actually felt really good about that.
Feels good to get it off your chest a little bit, right?
All right, now I want to talk about BK and his...
Enough of that.
I thought you were going to say you're ready for first pitch tonight.
All right.
Well, that too.
Let's get to a couple of these. We're going to continue these in the next segment as well. It is time for a Take Purge. We do this annually here on BK and Ferrario. There are no consequences. None of this can be held against you. It's as if tomorrow this was never said, but it feels good. It feels so good to be able to get it off your chest. Some of the things that you've been thinking about that you were never able to say out loud, this is the time to do it. Let's go to the mic drop feature on the 101 ESPN app. All I've got here is that this is from an unknown character, so let's hear the first mic drop today.
Guys, I mean, what did you expect this season? I mean, I'm just trying to be honest. If you look at every major league roster that could potentially make the playoffs this year, the Cardinals lineup is a nobody. Besides the people in St. Louis, nobody knows who Donovan is. Nobody knows who Newbar is. I'm just saying, guys, nobody knows who Michael Ciani is. Nobody knows who Jordan Walker is. Nobody knows who Mason Wynn is. They knew them in AAA, not the major leagues.
AA.
How many rookies that are doing great that we know their name in the offseason? It wasn't too much hype around these players. This lineup is garbage. These players and these names on the back of these jerseys are garbage. These are not leadoff hitters, 30 home run hitters. These hitters that we're relying on that was batting at the top of the lineup, that's batting in the top of the lineup right now, they were batting at the bottom of the lineup 1 year ago, 2 years ago. And people think just because they were hitting good down there, they could be a leadoff hitter. They could be a 40 home run hitter. No, they were hitting good down there because they didn't have any pressure. They were young. We had Albert. We had Goldsmith hitting. We need new players that can hit in the middle of the lineup.
Listen, that goes back to what I said.
Hey, you wanted to push back. I
saw that face you made. You were like, oh.
Do it. Do it on the
twitching.
one.
You started twitching.
My left eye was like, no, Donovan he wasn't hitting at the bottom of the order last year. He's still really good last year. He's hitting at the top, but it doesn't matter.
These guys are middle of the order.
I'm not doing it. Hey, what he said there at the end, especially, I totally agree with. Your guys in the middle of the order have to be the big bats. And until they become that, I mean, what do you want them to do? Like, I'm not going to sit here and be like, hey, the reason why the Cardinals are sucking offensively is because since Dylan Carlson returned to the lineup, he has 0 hits. I'm not going to sit here and be like, hey, the reason why the Cardinals are struggling right now is because Dylan Carlson's been arguably your worst defender so far this year. No, I'm not saying any of that. I would never say any of that. That's not what I'm saying. I'm definitely not saying that.
Sounds like a pushback to me on the first one.
The Cardinals have Alec Burleson hitting cleanup right now, and the first time that he came up, he decided to try to lay down a bunt. And the second time he came up, the bases were loaded, and he wasn't able to come through.
A game that was rained out. They had Jose Fermin leading off.
Yeah, I mean,
what are we doing?
What do you want?
Pedro Pajes was hitting 6th.
My God, man. We're going to continue this on the other side. We got Nick, we got Charles, we got David, we got a bunch more mic drops coming in. It's a purge day here on BK and Ferrario. We'll hear your purges coming up next year on 101 ESPN.
Can you imagine how sad Fred Bird must be right now? All depressed and all alone at Busch Stadium because no fans want to come watch the crap sandwich that John Mozeliak has put out on the field. I believe if it was up to Fred Bird, he would fire John Mozeliak, and I think it's time that we allow him to get his wish. Mo's got to go. Mo's completely destroyed any legacy he ever had in St. Louis. I'm sick of him, and he has ruined this team, and he needs to be fired. He doesn't need to be allowed to step down. He needs to be fired for the sake of Fred Bird. Fred Bird deserves better.
That was Hunter on the mic drop feature on the 101 ESPN app. You can't hold that against him because Hunter's doing that on a day that is the Take Purge here on PK and Ferrario. The rules are very simple. There are no rules. You can say whatever it is within the rules of the FCC.
Come on, say the F-bombs.
About the St. Louis Cardinals that you've been trying to get off your chest, Alex basically said Ollie's a bad manager. And I said that Nolan Arenado and Paul Goldschmidt, they're not the winners that you needed to build around. The one time that we've seen both of them succeed, it was when they weren't the number one guy in town. It was Albert Pujols that everybody was talking about back in 2022. He was going for history, and as a result, those two guys didn't have the same amount of pressure on them to perform, and they put together MVP caliber seasons. Before then and since then, they have not been the same players, and we've seen the culture of the organization deteriorate under their watch. So I don't know how I can look here and say those are the guys that are going to get back on track when everything's gone to hell in a handbasket with them at the helm. So we want to hear from you. The mic drop feature is on the 101 ESPN app. It is a Take Purge here on BK and Ferrario. We do this annually. You hear this siren, and it means that it is time for you to send in your mic drops with whatever it is that you got to purge out of your mind. All right, let's go out to the mic drop feature. Let's hear from Nick.
Okay, so we're doing a purge today. Well, here's mine. Everybody that keeps saying they need to fire Ollie is honestly just clueless to this point. He couldn't do it. Schilt got him all the way to the NLCS. They fired him. Mo is the one that has to go. He has absolutely no proven track record. Every single team that he had that was successful came from players that were from the prior administration. He's absolutely destroyed the prospects and the entire farm system ever since he got there. We can see it now. It's finally come to fruition. Everybody, I've texted in so many times, I'm so sick and nobody's saying it. Mo is the only thing that needs to go.
It's not pushing back if the individual calls me a name, right?
Yeah, I feel like we were part of that.
Like
purge.
I could push back because I'm not clueless. Like I'll push back there.
He hurt you, didn't he?
Huh?
I could feel the hurt in your voice.
I'm not clueless. Come on, man. I hear that all the time. I don't want to hear it now.
I hear that when I go home. I don't need to hear it from you.
My 2-year-old says that to me.
Hey, listen, man, it's a Take Purge. And he said that John Mozeliak had nothing to do with him winning the World Series in 2011, even though obviously he did. Hey, it's Take Purge, which means I can't push back. Good for you, man.
Someone texted it and said mic drop sent directly to Ferrario. I said Mo had to go on top of saying Ollie had to go.
All right, we continue along here. Let's hear what Charles has to say for his Cardinals Take Purge today.
You can fire Ollie, you can fire Mo, and nothing's going to change. What you need to look at is who is in charge of player development and player evaluation. If you look at all the players that we've let go and they've gone somewhere else and they've turned into good players, something's wrong in the system. It seems like since Jeff Luna went to Houston, everything's gone downhill and they haven't been able to pick a player or develop one since. So that's my 2 cents.
Isn't Jose Oquendo in charge of player development?
Oh, he's part of it.
I mean, and also Jason Isringhausen.
Hey, you said that I was going to be the one
I'm pushing back. I'm asking a question. I'm asking a question. Jose Oquendo, Jason Isringhausen, these guys are in charge of the development, right?
Yeah, but there's been a brain drain. I actually do agree with this. Randy was talking about it earlier today on the morning show. I mean, you think about it, for everybody that says Ollie's such a terrible coach, Ollie was one of the guys down in the minor league system that was helping to develop players. He was a big part of that process. Mike Schilt, big part of that process in the past. DJ, a guy that BT has talked about for years as a huge part of it. He left the organization after the Schilt firing. There has been a bit of a brain drain when it comes to guys that were previously significant pieces of the development system here in St. Louis that are no longer a part of it. Were promoted from within and then are either on the big league staff or have gone elsewhere. So I do think there's something to that. I think that the process of getting these guys to the big leagues, there are a lot of guys that were a part of that 5, 10, 15 years ago that are no longer there.
And the guy that was in place was Jeff Albert that was in charge of all of at least the hitting development, and we all know what happened with that.
All right, we continue with our Take Purge here on BK and Ferrario. Mic drop features on the 101 ESPN app if you'd like to send one in. Let's hear from David.
This isn't the players' fault. Everyone says the players are on the field. No, it's the owner's fault. DeWitt, do you want to spend money on this team or not? Look in the stands. Do you think the fans are happy with what you're doing? The general manager. Hey, Mo, that's the best players that you can find to be on this team? What's the last big acquisition we've gotten? Wilson Contreras? Okay, yeah, he's halfway decent, but I ran into a person at the Philly station who was a Cubs fan. He said, he's your problem now. And who is the other people you brought in? Pujols? He ain't there. There's no one on this team. So y'all can have fun looking at the AAA Redbirds, but I'm not.
Man, I didn't think this would be as difficult to not push back with, but this is a little difficult.
Anything that
imagine what Mo's like if Mo were listening right now.
He loves BK.
Imagine
Ferrario.
what he is thinking to himself. Like, man, Wilson Contreras is amazing. What are you talking about?
I like how he goes, who'd you acquire? Wilson Contreras? Okay, fine. He's pretty good.
Who'd you acquire? Sonny Gray with the 2.2 ERA? All right, listen, I guess that's
But who before
out,
that?
right?
Albert Pujols? Oh, okay. He was actually like a Hall of Famer in the second half that got him to the... But who after that?
I mean, if we're... Like, I'm going to...
Keenan Middleton?
I promise you I'm not pushing back. I'm just saying, like, to do this well, mention the guys that he really failed at acquiring. Dexter Fowler,
Tyler O'Neill.
that's your big process that you're acquiring. You're going out there getting Brett Cecil, Greg Holland at the end of a spring training.
You trade for Matthew Liberatore?
Guys, come on. Let's go.
If Mo's listening, I hate to inform Mo, there's a long line for the Purge that I still haven't gotten.
If Mo's listening, though, Mo's kind of like, okay, I'm feeling pretty good about myself. We need to make this a little bit more lethal.
We're continuing along with the Purge. Let's hear one more. We'll get to more on the other side. Let's hear from Matthew.
Fire everybody. Fire the front office. Fire the management team. Nothing against them personally. Quite frankly, they've done some pretty incredible things. At least the front office has in the last decade plus. Thankful for that, Mo, Gersh, whatever you have contributed. Thank you for that, whatever it may be. But the bottom line is this. This team has way too much talent to be this bad. We can sit and analyze it all day. Why isn't this player performing? Why isn't that player performing? The bottom line is they have a lot of names in the lineup, and they have some good starting pitchers, and their bullpen could be great, and they stink.
I mean, that sounds like me. Did I send that in? Did I forget? And I sent that.
You did go to the bathroom during that commercial break. It's a weird surname, but
I agree with everything you just said. I appreciate a lot of what John Mozeliak and Michael Gersh and, frankly, Ollie Marmol have done over the years as contributions to this organization. And I'm not doing that just to kiss their ass. Like, I don't need to do that. But I do think when you just take a sober look at what's taken place since the start of last season, Alex, it's unacceptable. This is the St. Louis Cardinals, and over the last 2 years, you're bottom 5 in Major League Baseball in winning percentage. You have won roughly 42% of your games since the start of last year. That can't happen. We're not in Kansas City right now. This looks like the baseball that I watched growing up. That should not happen when you are paying as much money for your roster as the Cardinals are. Somebody earlier said the ownership needs to go because they're not spending money. No, the problem is they are. The problem is that the Cardinals are spending in the top 10 to 12 in Major League Baseball on an annual basis. And over the last 2 years, the return on that investment could not be any worse. They are, if you're just looking, I would love to see a plot of this, but if you're looking at how much teams spend per win since the start of last season, I have to imagine the Cardinals are paying more per win over the last 2 years based on their payroll than any team in Major League Baseball. Because there's other teams that are worse, don't get me wrong. But the Pirates aren't spending anything to be worse. You look across, like the Colorado Rockies aren't spending much on their roster. So, of course, they're going to be bad. the A's are literally spending as much on their entire roster as the Cardinals are for Nolan Arenado. So that's where I think it's a little bit different here in St. Louis.
And you're spending it on the wrong people, too. Like, at the time, you felt like you had internal options, but we always go back to Bryce Harper was there for you. That's a winning player that you spend a lot of money on to bring in and say, hey, this is how we win it. Max Scherzer, at the time when he was fresh, spend a lot of money on. That's a winning player. But we're like, nope, don't want to do this. Even in the international market, when Luis Robert was the one that was available, and everyone was like, this is the guy. Nope, we don't want to spend an extra $5 million to go get this player. At some point, spending money is good, but are you spending it on the right types of players? Because it's very evident in the last 5 years, you haven't been spending it on the right types of players.
Somebody on the text line said, BK, you got to think about the Mets when you think about the dollars per win. Good point. Maybe the Cardinals are second.
No, but not anymore. They're cutting payroll.
Yeah, but they're spending like $20 million this year on multiple pitchers that aren't pitching for them. So that's not going to help.
But that money doesn't really matter to them as much.
He's Alex's T-Bone on BK. Coming up next, we'll hear more from you on the Take Purge here on BK and Ferrario.
Terry Hendrickson here with a Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Cardinals fall to the Brewers last night, 7-1. They'll be back in action tonight. 7:10 will be first pitch, and Lance Lynn will be on the mound for St. Louis. The Sports Update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
It's Take Purge Day here on BK and Ferrario. If you're not familiar with the film The Purge, the way that this works is very simple. One day a year, you go out there, commit whatever crime it is that you've been waiting for. That way you can get it out of your system. They believe in the film. That's something that people need. Everybody has their deepest, darkest desires, and on this day, everything is in play. There are no consequences for whatever it is that you say, within reason, of course. You can't go out there and be threatening or anything like that. FCC violations are not super great here.
Otherwise, T-Bone will get
radio.
you.
But within reason, say whatever it is that's on your chest that you've been wanting to get off your chest over the last, 2 years about the St. Louis Cardinals. Alex got his out of the way, said that Mo should step down, said that Ollie's not a winning manager. I said that Arenado and Goldie, the two of them combined, the only time that we've seen them reach the peak performance here in St. Louis is when they weren't expected to be the #1 guy in town. That was the year that Albert Pujols came back, and he was chasing history. So that was able to take them down a peg. The pressure wasn't on them. We saw them succeed as a result. When the pressure is on those two, they don't come through. They're not winning players. They can't handle the pressure of performing in a market like St. Louis. That's our Take Purges. We've been hearing from you throughout the day today here on BK and Ferrario. We want to continue to do so throughout the rest of the day. The mic drop features on the 101 ESPN app. Whatever it is that you have to say to get off your chest about the St. Louis Cardinals, you can do that right here on 101 ESPN. Alex, as we continue along here, one other thing that I'd like to get off of my chest.
Oh, another one. I love it.
I think if the Cardinals prospects were on another team in another organization, like if Jordan Walker was coming through the Rays system, if Nolan Gorman was coming through the Astros system, if Dylan Carlson was coming through the Yankees system, I think they would have succeeded. I think the problem for many of these players, and I don't know why this is the case, but it is a problem that has been plaguing them now for a little while. For whatever reason, it's not even so much the guys that have gone elsewhere to have success at this point that I care about. Whatever. It is what it is. A lot of teams have those. Like Yordan Alvarez was supposed to be a Dodger. They traded him for 2 months of a reliever. He went elsewhere and ended up having a ton of success. My problem with the Cardinals is not any longer about the guys that have left that have had success. It's the guys that have stayed that have failed. Why is Dylan Carlson one of the worst players in Major League Baseball right now? Why does he look like this? Why is it that Jordan Walker comes up, has success, and then immediately has to go down? Why is it that Lars Nootbaar comes up, has success, but can't seem to take the next step? He's a star at the international stage, and he goes out and for Team Japan is one of the best players on the roster, and we know now many of the players on that team were excellent baseball players. We've seen them all come over here and have success in the major leagues, and yet Lars Nootbaar has not taken that next step. Why is it that Brendan Donovan this year can't seem to get back on track offensively? Why is it that Paul Goldschmidt and Nolan Arenado, when they have slumps, they last so long? Why can't this team get the best out of these guys that we know are talented? That's something that I have a question about and that I've been wondering over the past few weeks especially. I don't understand it, and I think if these guys were elsewhere, they'd be having a lot more success than they are having here, and it bothers me that that is taking place. All right, let's go to the mic drop feature on the 101 ESPN app. Let's hear from Bill with his Take Purge today.
The Cardinals management has half measured this team to death ever since 2011. They went cheap on coaching after La Russa left. They never overpay for the top free agents. They always overpay for the middling free agents. They never bite the bullet and sell and rebuild from the bottom up like they should have. They always go for half measures. And now we get to this year and last year where it's just a complete and utter mess. They have to fire everybody, start from the bottom, and build this up because we do have good young players to build a foundation on.
Man, one point that he just nailed there. Why is it that the last 3 managers have been rookie inexperienced at the major league level managers when the Cardinals have built a roster off of veteran players? It's all been like veteran guys that are ready to win World Series, but hey, we're going to bring in a manager who's never managed at the major league level before. Like Mike Schilt, get it, in the minors for a long time, and you felt like worked well. Same with Ollie. Mike Matheny, just fresh off of playing, and you feel like he meshes well with the players. But all of these other teams that were competing for World Series, they had experience. And one thing that the Cardinals relied way too heavily on was like, hey, we've got a veteran roster. We don't need a veteran manager. The roster will manage itself. And look what's happened. You can't push back, so you shut your damn mouth.
So if I were to push back,
you can't. It's Purge.
Something that I would probably say is the Baltimore Orioles hired Brandon Hyde as their
but they've
manager.
been drafting in the top 2 for the last 10 years. You weren't. You were signing Dexter Fowler and Brett Cecil and Mike Leake and saying these guys are going to win.
The Guardians
with Mike
hired
Matheny.
Stephen Vogt. The Phillies hired a guy that had been in their organization. Now, he's older, but Rob Thompson isn't a guy that had been a manager prior. He's having success there. The Brewers hired a guy, Murphy, who
was literally the best friend of Craig Counsell for the last 10 years.
Yeah, I mean,
well, you
Ollie
brought in
Marmol
you
was
brought
the best
in
friend of the guy that everybody loves in Mike Schultz. They are super close.
Everybody loves Mike Schilt.
Cardinals fans?
I think they love Mike Schilt because they want Mike Schilt back because he was the last one that could win.
Right, and the guy that was next to him, like if we're going to make the case in Milwaukee for the guy that was next to Craig Counsell being the next manager, then the same case could be made very easily here in St. Louis, whether it's for Mike Schilt when he was hired or for Ollie Marmol. Now, Matheny's a separate category in and of itself, but I mean, if we're going to talk about first-time managers, like most of the teams that are currently leading their division other than the Rangers have first-time managers. But I can't push back today because it's Purge Day here on BK and Ferrario. I'm just pushing back against you, not what they said specifically.
I think they said what was right. I think you're an idiot, but we're fine.
Fair enough.
It was a purge.
Take Purge. You can say that. Let's go back out to the mic drop feature. Let's hear from Rick, his Take Purge today.
Guys, it's obviously the curse of Chip. Chip is the reason. Ever since then, boom, downhill go the Birds. It's the curse of the former Cubs announcer, Chip Carey.
Hey,
ouch.
Tough but fair.
But yeah, I mean,
it's me and Chip.
Joey stepped into a broadcast booth and they won a Stanley Cup that first year.
I left St. Louis in December of 2018, I guess it would have been, right before the Blues went on their run.
Sounds about
I
right.
literally left in, I think it was January 1st, actually. It was like at the very beginning of January, right when, I think 2 weeks prior, Bennington had been called up to the NHL, and I was like, oh, well, this is ridiculous. This is going to be the way that they end up improving it. I went to a Capitals game, I remember, Blues versus Caps, and it was just like, dude, this is a terrible team. Look at this. Sonny's the worst hockey player I've ever seen in my life. And then 3 months later, they're going to the playoffs, and then we all know what happens after that. And then I come back, and since then, everything's gone to hell. The Cardinals have gone to crap. They haven't won a playoff game since I've been back in town. So it's me and Chip. We're the problems for St. Louis sports, and I apologize to
I'd
everybody.
lean more towards you, but that's fine.
All right, next one up. Is it Rick or Matt? Matt is the one that we're at now?
Yeah, Matt.
Let's hear from Matt.
I know everyone is all hot and bothered about firing Marmol or firing a coach. I honestly don't care who coaches the team the rest of this year. That really doesn't much matter to me. I don't want to see Mozeliak or Gersh or any of that ilk make another decision for this team. I don't care if they bring in someone on a temporary basis just to finish the year. I would just feel much better about decisions that were made if they were made by somebody else.
Good news for you, Matt, is they won't be making any more decisions because there's no moves that are going to be made this season. It's going to be it. You're going to ride this wave out.
I get that completely. I don't blame you.
I don't think they should
You're the people that have got us here. Why should I trust you to get us out of it?
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're in a really bad place right now. And somebody said this on Twitter. Why should they? To your point on the manager.
Oh, here we go. Back to it.
No. I think this is a fair point on it. If they deem the last 3 managers to be failures, and they would clearly see it that way if they fired all 3 of them, then why should you be the one that is entrusted to hire the 4th?
Mm-hmm.
If you get 3 in a 7-year span, you get a 4th?
That's why the Yachty demand thing is so wild to me, because that's another inexperienced manager. Now, I know it's a beloved Cardinals player, but that's another inexperienced manager. At some point, you look at it and you say, we got to keep doing what we're doing and try something new.
Matheny was also beloved prior to becoming the manager here in St. Louis. Now, different levels, obviously. I'm not suggesting that Yachty or Molina is equal to Mike Matheny in terms of their playing days here in St. Louis. I understand that.
That's what I heard.
I do think it's fair to say I don't know how beloved he would be if he took over this current mess. All right, let's go back out to the mic drop feature. One more here for the Take Purge. This one comes from Howie.
Alrighty, buckle up for safety, boys. Here's my purge. Yeah, go ahead and trade Nolan Arenado. Go ahead and trade Paul Goldschmidt. Fire Ali Marmol, which in that case you're going to have to fire John Mozeliak. It's clean house. Clean house at this point. I would say trade Wilson Contreras, but he just went and broke his arm, so good luck with that one. Yeah, this is great. This is good, guys. This is fun. This is fun. We're having fun.
I'm having fun. What a day to do a purge.
Honestly, thank God for this. I needed this today. I came in today and I looked at Alex, I looked at T-Bone, and I thought to myself, we're going to do this again, huh? We're going to talk about this crap team one more time and then keep doing it for the next 4 months.
Sometimes you need humor in destruction.
I think we're going to have to find out what we're going to do this summer because
we got it, man. We got a BK and Ferrario karaoke night. Mm-hmm. I think we should do a BK and Ferrario lip sync battle, like the television show, where we give out trophies, we give out rewards. I think we should do a golf outing. I think we should probably do like a taste of St. Louis, maybe go to the Hill, try some places on the Hill. I think we should enjoy our summer as a group of friends.
BK and Ferrario are foodies, that kind of thing?
Maybe a cruise.
I would be down for a cruise.
BK and Ferrario do Mexico.
Yeah.
I feel like we could probably come up with a better name. Middays in Mexico?
No, I like mine better.
And
then the picture of it is T-Bone and a banana hammock celebrating.
Yeah.
Because he's on a cruise.
Do it on the 4th of July weekend. We're celebrating.
Cannonball into my pool, T-Bone. That'll be the picture.
T-Bone finds the best T-Bones.
There you go.
T-Bone finds his mate. Dating?
Oh, dude, we have to do a dating show this summer.
Cardinals, we have got to turn this around.
We are seeking content, and this is the way to do it.
Yeah, I'm telling you, everybody just start sending in the demands for what we want because BK and Ferrario, we are wide open.
T-Bone takes on the dating scene, something about that.
T-Bone takes on Tinder.
There you go. That's perfect.
Oh, man.
It's a good one. T-Bone can't even push back.
That's
it's a take purge, dude. You can't push back.
Yeah, you can't push back.
I'd rather
Today's
go
the
through
purge.
the dating world and watch the Cardinals right now.
You know what?
Just think of that.
BK and I will finally start our parenting podcast, Mustachios and Pistachios.
I'm thinking about it. T-Bone and I, by the way, are starting up a new baseball podcast, I think.
Terrible time to do that one.
Timing for us.
Might be able to purge. This is a hockey podcast you could listen to with me and Donnie
really use a
Fandango.
bounce back for this podcast to have success.
Yeah.
I'm telling you guys, we got all kinds of stuff this season.
Somebody said, how about another BK and Ferrario home run derby? No, that
we will totally do that. Let's do a celebrity BK and Ferrario home run derby.
That didn't go so well the last time around.
People need laughter these days.
Slap shot tournament. That probably wouldn't go well.
I can't really skate, so I'd try it.
I think we should have a golf tournament with all of us.
Somebody said just talk Battlehawks the rest of the summer. Well, they've got like 3 weeks left.
Yeah.
Maybe T-Bone could do some more beer miles. Maybe a beer marathon for BK because he loves marathons. He puts it on his car with bumper stickers all the time.
I'm going to start just doing content from my runs the next
I'm going to start exercising. I'm going to make myself a better person.
All right, I'm not willing to go that far yet, okay? This whole exercise thing.
Well, the Cardinals aren't wanting to, so I will.
Maybe we do beer reviews during the show.
I'd love to. Seltzer's reviews.
A tour of all of the microbreweries here in St. Louis. There are great ones. So.
We take T-Bone to every Italian restaurant and have him rank them.
And do dates from the restaurants.
You and I will sit at another table with our wives like couples, and then we'll be like Shakespeareing it.
I don't want you over my shoulder.
Should we do Love is Blind style with him and the date both having to wear blindfolds as they're having
What was that dating show called where the person sat in a chair with their back towards the people and they kept asking questions?
Like Matchmaker?
Maybe it was Matchmaker or something like that, but then everybody would take step forwards and then the last person standing was your date.
Man,
we have video series coming right now.
I really hope we turn this around.
And then our cruise became Ferrario, do Mexico.
Really hope we get this
do the DR. Cardinals. That's better. Became Ferrario, do the DR. I like that one.
Coming up
do
next.
the D.
No, that was bad.
And then R's lowercase. Can't see it. I like karaoke night too.
Go to break.
Junk drawer is next.
Alrighty, buckle up for safety, boys.
Alex, do you know how to drive a stick shift?
No, I do not.
T-Bone?
No clue.
The first car that I ever had was a stick shift. I know that surprises probably a lot of people in our audience right now, given how little I have in terms of my handyman skills. The other night, Alex, it took me like 3 hours to hang up a new place for us to put our keys, key holder, whatever.
How long did it take?
I think
you
it
to
took
do
like 3 hours to do it. You know
What'd
how
you do?
it
Build
is,
it from
right?
scratch with wood?
It has the holes on the back that you got to get the screws exactly in the right place to be able to make sure that it's even.
You get a piece of paper and you put it on the backside. You find the 2 holes, you stab it on the paper, and then you put the paper up on the wall and you draw little circles.
Man, that's a really good idea that I'm going to use the next time around. It took me way too long to do this.
I can't believe that took you multiple
I get mad every time
hours.
I have to hang something up. Every single time I fail spectacularly at it.
Man, I had mine yesterday with the pool.
What happened?
I tried to get my pool. So we took our pool tarp off, and there was a lot of the scum on top of it, and there was a big hole on it. So we were trying to get it off without the scum going in the pool, and it went in the pool, and now my pool looks like the Hulk just peed in it.
So you probably felt then the way that this woman did when she decided in Denver, walking down the road, I'm going to get that car right there. She gets out of jail, and a little bit afterwards, she's walking down the road, says, I'm going to carjack that one.
I'm glad she's made a change in her life.
Yeah, the day before she stole a car, got out of jail, and then decided to steal another car. Probably not great decision-making process, but it got worse for her, Alex, because when she gets into the car, she realizes, uh-oh, this is a stick shift.
Oh, crap.
And she doesn't know how to drive a stick shift. So, how was she found, Alex, you might ask?
How?
Well,
crashed.
She did indeed crash right into a fire hydrant.
Oh, nice.
So she ends up getting pulled over. The police come because now the fire hydrant has
That's
the water
the
going
worst.
all over the place. And she has to say, I didn't know how to drive this because it's a stick shift. And that is the way that she, for the second time in a 24-hour period, went back to jail.
Don't you walk to the door before you carjack it and you're like, no, stick shift, got to go to a new one. I mean, I can
even
always
if you get into the car, at a certain point,
Get out.
you realize, uh-oh, I got to drive with a clutch here, and I don't know how that's going to work.
I mean, I got to be honest with you. I could look at a car and tell you if it's a stick shift or not.
Really?
You just know. They're the older cars.
I don't have that in me.
Well, you don't know cars like I do, apparently, BK. It just, you just know that that's probably a stick shift. And I wouldn't do it.
Would you ever drive a stick shift? I preferred it.
No, because I feel like I'm always worried I would ruin the car.
Not because of the clutch?
Yeah, just because of the clutch. Like, my dad, he rides a motorcycle, and it's got the, clutch on it. And, he's tried to explain it to me. And I'm like, I could never ride a motorcycle because I don't know what the hell you're talking about. My lawnmower, I got a riding mower from my backyard. It's got a clutch, but you don't have to mess with it. It's just you got to, move it up when you start it.
Sure.
I'm still worried.
It's almost like an on-off switch.
Yeah, I'm still worried when I'm driving this. I'm like, oh, do I need to move the clutch when I go a little faster? So, no, I'm way too dumb, and I'm happy to admit that I can't do clutch.
He's Alex, that's T-Bone on BK. Coming up next, we're going to continue with our Take Purge here on BK and Ferrario. You guys are sending in the mic drops. We'll continue getting to them next here on 101 ESPN. It's an annual tradition here on BK and Ferrario, and if it wasn't, it certainly has become one given how the team has played over the past couple of seasons. It's the Purge. Alex, you've seen the movie. People are familiar with it. You hear the siren, and that means that there's no rules over the next 24 hours. Once a year, you can go out there and do whatever it is that you wanted to do. Big or small, you can commit crimes. You can go out there and say whatever it is you want to say, do it what it is that you want to do, and people have to take shelter because for that 24-hour period, there are no consequences. They believe in the movie that once you've done this once a year, people get it out of their system. There's no crime the rest of the year. At least that's the theory involved. And so for us here on the show, once a year, you get whatever it is that you need to do and get it out of your system. It's the take purge here on BK and Ferrario. We've been hearing from you throughout the day today. We've been giving you some of ours as well. I mentioned earlier, I think Arenado and Goldie, they can't do it as number ones on a team. They need somebody else to take the pressure off of them, and that's why Albert Pujols, when he came back in 2022, he was that guy for them. He took the pressure off them. We saw both of them in the top 3 of MVP voting that year because of that. You mentioned you think John Mozeliak should step down. He shouldn't have to be fired. He should resign from his position. You mentioned that you think Ollie Marmol, just not a winning manager. He's not the guy that can get you to the promised land. We've heard many of your takes via the mic drop feature so far today as well, and we will continue doing so throughout the afternoon here on BK and Ferrario. T-Bone, I don't see who the next one up is, but let's go ahead and get to these. The Take Purge continues with this mic drop via the 101 ESPN app.
St. Louis sports absolutely suck right now. I am so uninterested in all of it. The Cardinals front office sucks. The Blues front office sucks. They let all our players walk or trade them away. Petrangelo, Gallen, Alcantara, Rosarena. All the players are underperforming, whether it's the Cardinals or the Blues. It's not exciting sports to watch. And then the front office just has no clue what they have in the Cardinals. They should have known where they were at last year, started the retool or rebuild, and traded Goldschmidt and Arenado at last year's trade deadline. But instead, we're sitting here a year too late, just with Arenado and Goldie just sitting on our hands, which honestly sounds like a lot how we handle our prospects. So anyways, yeah, I don't even know. St. Louis sports sucks. I don't know how to fix it.
Damn, James. You need a hug, buddy? We can't push back, right? Like, we are not pushing back today. But if let's just say this was a scenario that we weren't stopping us from pushing back. Get the hell out of here, James. Blues front office doesn't stink. Yeah, they got rid of Petrangelo, but at least they were able to recover. Cardinals can't even recover.
What?
But we're not pushing back.
I thought everything said there was totally reasonable. Let's continue along here with Justin.
The problem is not Mo, it's the ownership group. There is a reason the Cardinals have not won a playoff series since the year Ballpark Village opened. The DeWitts realize they do not have to put a successful winning team on the field to make money. They can put a mediocre team that they spend a mediocre amount of money on, and they will still fill the seats with St. Louis homers because that's what people in St. Louis do. We go to Cardinals games. They don't care about winning. You can look at the product on the field and see that the focus is not winning.
Can't.
We're not allowed to push back, fellas.
Not allowed to push back. If I can't push back, you can't push back.
I promise you I wasn't going to. I think one thing, and I was listening to the Killcoin Conversation podcast that you can hear over at scoopswithdannymac.com yesterday. He was talking to Bill DeWitt III, and one of the things that he asked was, hey, what's the attendance going to look like this year? And he said, our floor is probably right around 3 million. That's kind of what we're expecting this year. Could be a little less, but the over-under, he said, is probably right around 3 million fans. And Kilcoyne asked him, he said, is that announced attendance? Like, when they announce that attendance, you see that at the bottom line at the end of the year, is that paid attendance or is that actual butts in the seats? He said, well, it's paid attendance, but typically it's pretty close, according to Bill DeWitt III. He believes that both are relatively similar on a night-in, night-out basis.
I saw those stadiums when the sellouts were talked about.
Yeah, that's fair. I do think that one thing that I agree with from that mic drop is that people just go to games here, man. It's just a part of what we do in St. Louis. We don't live on a beach, right? We don't live where earlier today we talked to Al Avila, former Tigers general manager, and he was saying, hey, I'm out in Utah where we're going to this national park. It's absolutely stunning. We're don't necessarily have that here in St. Louis, man. What we have is really good beer. We got the Cardinals. We got Italian food. We got a zoo. Like that's what we celebrate in St. Louis. But when it comes to the summertime, we all pack the stadium because that's what we do. The entertainment in St. Louis is you go to the zoo or you go to a Cardinals game. When people come into town and it's any time between like May and September, what are you going to do that weekend when they're in town? The chances are you're probably going to a Cardinals game at some point over the course of a weekend. If you lived in New York, if you lived in Chicago, if you lived in LA, San Francisco, whatever, and this is not talking down to St. Louis. I made this place my home because I love it in part. But part of what makes us special in St. Louis is that stadium and that team. And so we're going to continue going because that's what we do, even when the team's not that good. So he is right on that part. Like, I don't think it's a shot against St. Louis. I think it's honestly like a respectful thing.
It's more of a shot at the ownership.
The fans here love their baseball so much. They love going to the stadium so much that it's just become a part of our culture.
Yeah, well, and I mean, I can't blame anybody for doing that. Like, that's how you spend time with your friends. If you have little kids like me and BK, or like Tanner is a little kid, you want to take them so that they can get new traditions, the traditions that you grew up with. If anything, that's not a shot at St. Louis. That's why they're called the best fans in baseball.
100%.
It's a shot at the ownership for not putting a product that is World Series capable, because you know these fans are going to come out there every single year. You want to give them something that they're proud to go to.
Somebody else on the text line said, man, this station is really out of touch. You think that the family wants to go out and watch the Birds or go watch City? Come on, man. I think both. I've said on the air, I think the best current at the actual stadium, the best atmosphere, the best experience that you can get from a live sporting event, in my opinion right now, is going to City Park. I think it's amazing. I went to a game 3 weeks ago now, with a bunch of my family. It's awesome. You can't get a better experience than that. I prefer the smaller, more intimate crowd, personally, at a soccer game as opposed to going to like a football game or something. So I'm totally with you. But it's once a week that you get to see City play for the most part. And generally speaking, it's like, 15, 20 home dates over the course of the year? The Cardinals have 81 of them, man. That's the biggest difference. No matter when somebody's coming in from out of town, you're probably going to have at some point that week an opportunity to go down to Busch Stadium. So that's the main primary difference that I've got there. All right, we've gone on there. Let's hear from Jeff via the mic drop feature.
All right, so it's Purge Day. My purge is the entire front office, the entire coaching staff, minus Willie McGee. Start fresh, play the young kids. We finish where we finish. We draft high. We move on. Start for 2025.
True or false? This individual unbuttoned his pants when he started this mic drop.
True.
All right, time for Purge. I liked it.
I like how he said,
other than Willie McGee.
Willie gets to stick around.
Good for Willie to stick around, man.
Willie, congrats. You get to stay, man. He's the meme of Will Smith standing in his building where nobody else is around.
All right, let's continue along here with the Take Purge. Let's hear from Trucker Dan.
I think Bo's got to go. Ollie's got to go. When you had the white rat, Whitey, there was a fear factor. Ollie, there ain't no fear factor. My mother-in-law, fear factor. Get rid of them.
Are you kidding me? CB Buckner is afraid of Ollie Marmol. You see how fast he got out of that stadium when they called that one a strike? He was gone. Not pushback, though. Trucker Dan.
There is no fear factor at the Cardinals right now.
No.
People view the Cardinals as their slump buster.
Yeah.
If you're coming in, you got a tough time. You're going through it a little bit right now as a team. Just wait until you play the Cardinals.
They're like when you walk through you remember the mall when they had those like puppy stores with little puppies in the window? Yeah. Cardinals are like the little puppies. Cardinals are like, oh, look at the little cute puppy. Come here, puppy. That's what the Cardinals are.
You go in, you're like, hey, I just want to sit in that room with this this beautiful golden doodle. I'd like to sit in there for 10 minutes. And then you have no plans of buying the dog.
Yeah.
But you just want to sit out there, hang out for a little bit. The puppy's going to pee all over the floor.
It. The
You're
Cardinals,
like, hey, this is your mess to clean up. The Cardinals are the puppy dog that pees all over the ground, and it's somebody else's problem to clean up later on as you're the team that comes in and just smacks them around.
See, I think as the fan, you go in with the puppy as the Cardinals, and the Cardinals pee all over you. You're like,
cool. Now I got to go home and change my clothes.
Just wanted to have a good time. I wanted to spend 10 minutes with this cute little puppy dog, and it peed all over me. It pooped on me, and now I've got to get this all cleaned up.
Thanks a lot for this.
All right, let's continue the Take Purge coming up next year on BK and Ferrario.
All right, so it's Purge Day.
Continuing along here on the BK and Ferrario Take Purge, we do this typically about once a year. If you've seen the movies, you kind of get the idea of it, the gist of it. It's once a year. You get out all of the bad takes that you have. Maybe they're great takes, but you're able to get it out of your system. So that way tomorrow we can move right along. I don't know if that's going to happen here in St. Louis, given how bad the team's been, but it's fun nonetheless. Gives us something to be able to do over the course of the day instead of just breaking it down mindlessly the way that we have so many different times so far this year. We're all on the same page. I mentioned earlier today, I'm out. There's nothing they can do left the rest of the season to bring me back in.
Welcome
I'm
aboard.
Officially out on the 2024 St. Louis Cardinals. Alex, one more take that I've got for you as we continue along here. The mic drop features on the 101 ESPN app. T-Bone is working hard as hell right now because you guys have sent in like 100 different mic drops. He's trying to get to the best of them right now here on the show.
But Purge Day.
Yeah, a lot of you have been purged.
Another one that I've got, BK and Ferrario Take Purge. The Brewers have overtaken you as the clear-cut, no doubt about it, smartest franchise in this division. They are to the division what the Cardinals were 10 years ago. And what I mean by that is they spend efficiently. The Brewers are never going to go out there and sign like the biggest free agent on the market. They're not going to go out there and make a trade where they're getting like Juan Soto, but they're really smart and aggressive. Early in a season, what was it, 2-3 years ago now? They go out and they trade in like May, I think it was, for Willy Adames. Great decision by them. And Willy Adames has been really good for them since. He's one of the best players in the National League this year. They waited and emerged as a candidate to be able to trade for Christian Yelich after the Cardinals struck early for Marcell Ozuna. Now, the Yelich thing might not have aged the way that they expected it to because of all the back issues, but there was no way to foresee that. He's been much better for them than what Marcell Ozuna ended up being here in St. Louis. They decide at the deadline to trade Josh Hader. And as a part of that deal, they got a guy back that they ended up flipping maybe a year later to go get their now catcher in William Contreras. And they did that the same offseason that the Cardinals signed his brother Wilson. But the guy that they got in William is younger, cheaper, cost-controlled, and some could argue better than what you got in Wilson Contreras. When they make a move like this past offseason, getting Rhys Hoskins, I assume it's going to work out for them. When they go out and sign an unproven manager and Pat Murphy to take over for a guy that was a superstar manager for them, I assume it's going to work out. When they lose the president of baseball operations that had previously made so many of the smart decisions, and they have Matt Arnold take over as the new president of baseball operations, I assume it's going to work out. The Milwaukee Brewers are now where the Cardinals were 10 or 15 years ago in terms of making smart, informed, efficient decisions. Even if it doesn't lead to World Series results, they are the smartest team, the most well-run organization in this division right now. They have overtaken the Cardinals in that regard.
It's funny you brought that up because that plays into my next purge that I'd like to get into. The NL Central is passing you by. I mean, the Milwaukee Brewers, obviously, like you just mentioned, are who you were. The Chicago Cubs went through what was a rebuild and are already in a position where they're out-competing you. They evaluate talent better than you. They develop talent better than you. And they're aggressive when they need to be aggressive, and they bring in the players. The Cincinnati Reds were in a rebuild and are better than you. And even the Pittsburgh Pirates, who I know BK doesn't believe in, but I'd give them a good 3 years if they spend money, which we all know they won't, but they will be better than you for a small sample size because, yes, they're drafting top, but they're developing talent. The Cardinals are going to be left behind, standing at the bottom of the NL Central, looking, saying, how did we get here when they have to go into their own rebuild while the NL Central just continues to build upon itself? It's not going to be a, hey, we just need to win 85 games and we can win the NL Central type of go about it. No, you're going to have to be at the best with some of these teams, and it's going to be very evident that you are going to be left behind by yourself.
All right, there's a couple of purges for us. We'll continue to do that over the course of the next 30 minutes or so here on BK and Ferrario, but let's go and hear from you. The mic drop features on the 101 ESPN app. We continue our take purge here. Let's get to the next one.
It's Mo. He wants to be in charge of everything. He makes sure that he has managers that he control, and he dictates the system and how they're going to play. And unfortunately, his brand of baseball doesn't cut it. It's the old-time baseball that is the winning baseball. You just keep asking the same questions, but the answer is always the same. Get with it, guys. It's Mo.
Janet, God bless you and your ability to stand firm on one topic.
Hey, if there's anything that we know here on BK and Ferrario, it's that Lisa will talk about the Cardinals' inability
and their manager
to come through with runners in scoring position and why their manager is a problem and why Dylan Carlson should be given more opportunities.
Okay, well, that's where you lost me, Lisa.
And Janet will come through to explain why Mo is the problem. We continue along here on Purge Day on BK and Ferrario. Let's hear from Eric.
Well, I guess it's Purge Day, so here we go. Embrace the youth. Call it a rebuild, call it a retool. I don't care. People are afraid of that word because basically it means, oh, we're going to suck for a bit. But we suck now. So embrace the youth. Get them at bats. In 5-6 years, maybe we'll see something good. But right now, we're not seeing it. So just embrace the whatever you want to use. Tool, build, youth, whatever it is, we need it.
I do wonder what it would be like, Alex, if the Cardinals just said, you know what? Goldie's going to be traded. Arenado's going to be traded. We're going to trade.
No, we'll stick around for 2 months.
I think they should actually keep the older veteran pitchers. Now, hear me out here, because this is going to sound strange to trade away your proven superstar position players and then keep the core older veteran pitchers. I don't think they should embrace a full rebuild here in St. Louis. I actually don't believe that at all. I think they should do a retool kind of similar to what we're seeing with the Blues right now, because the Blues weren't in a position where they could actually rebuild. They couldn't get rid of the contracts. They tried last year with Torrey Krug. He says no. All right, well, what do we do then? We go ahead and commit to a retool as opposed to a rebuild. I think the Cardinals are in a similar spot. If they decided to do this as a retool, they gave themselves a chance with the veteran pitchers. That allows them the opportunity to kind of, if they get good quicker than expected, all right, cool, we can kind of build this thing back up. If not, whatever. But when you commit to this retool, it takes the pressure off of the young guys. And I do wonder if that would be helpful for them, where they're not going to the ballpark every single day with the expectation we have to win this one, dude. Because if we don't, it feels like the world is ending here in St. Louis every time they lose now. And if they commit to a retool and they come out and they say, hey, listen, we're going to sink or swim with all of these young guys. This is our new core. We are committed to Jordan Walker. He's playing every day in right field, whether he's hitting a $125 or $325. He's going to be out there and we're going to win with him eventually. Nolan Gorman, you're struggling against left-handed pitchers, but guess what? You're going to play against every single one of them because eventually we believe you're going to be able to take that spot. Hey, late innings, Mason Wynn coming up to the plate against a right-handed pitcher, and we got a lefty on the bench that could potentially profile better here. We're not putting you on the bench. We're not pinch hitting here for you because eventually we're going to need you to come through in these late-game situations when you're in your prime. I do wonder if that would help them out in the long run, Alex, if they were able to just commit to a certain group of players and take some of the pressure off of them.
Maybe in a retool, I would imagine it would. I mean, the pressure's still going to be on the offense because if you're not hitting, when I just took these guys out, you need to be performing.
But I'm saying, like, the wins and losses aren't as important anymore. And you say publicly, this year is not about necessarily getting to the playoffs. We'd love to get there, but our goal this year is to get the young guys as much playing time as possible. Then I think
I'd keep Sonny Gray and trade Lyndon Gibson. Because if I'm trading guys, I need to bring in the most in return. And I've got to be honest, you're not getting anything in return for Goldschmidt and Arenado if this is how they perform the rest of the way. The most you're going to get in a return would be for Lance Lynn and Kyle Gibson if they pitch this way.
I think the most you'd get in return is for Ryan Helsley.
Agreed.
But I do think that is somebody that I would actually trade.
I still think you would get a lot more in return than we give it credit for if these guys continue pitching this way, because these guys are better than they have been in the last 3, 4, 5 years. And if you're a team that just wants some pitching in the playoffs, that's worth giving up a third or fourth prospect. But, I mean, like, if you're going to go down that path, yeah, I would say you need to move on from Goldschmidt and Arenado and put every young player in a position and say, I don't care what you look like by the end of the season, you will not move from this position unless you need a day off.
All right, let's continue along here with some of the BK and Ferrario Take Purge. Let's hear from Eric here on the BK and Ferrario Take Purge today. Excuse me, let's hear from Scott. Do we have time?
I'm still trying to wrap my head around how Ali Marmol gets last place last year, the worst season in Cardinal history, and gets promoted. I mean, I tried that in my personal job. I just hid around, didn't do my job, didn't make the company any money, and they let me go.
Damn.
So here's to the Cardinals organization of being a hell of an employer for just promoting people to not do their job. I think I just turned my resume into the Cardinals to see what kind of job position I could get with them. I mean, hell, they might promote me next year. I might be in the dugout.
Scott, you could be Pobo. If you play your cards right.
Now I see why I like Ollie. Ollie reminds me of myself.
You keep
we
getting
both got
freaking promoted
despite not doing anything worth
Ollie,
the promotion.
Mo actually reminds me a lot of you. You just promote yourself. Be like, I'm going to be the president of baseball operations.
Somebody on the text line said, I remind them of Mo.
Yeah, you are Mo.
Know-it-all mentality.
Yeah.
Bad tone.
Problem.
Yeah, tone problem.
A lot of
always
the same
correct
issues.
people.
Maybe that's what Kirsch does. He walks around with a squirt bottle. Mo, that was bad talk.
I feel like you and I identify more with Mo. I'm sorry, with Gersh. Yeah, we're more Gersh. We're like, Mo, enough.
All right, let's continue along here. Last one for this segment. Let's hear from Brian via the mic drop feature.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Good. Not good.
For my purge.
Great.
I'm tired of my Gorman. He needs to go. Mo's got to go.
Wind chimes.
Gorman, we expect 40 home runs out of him, kind of like we did with Cairo with 40 goals. And, we only get 30,
Trash.
It's the same thing in St. Louis. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, we should hire Lisa as the general manager of the St. Louis Cardinals because I agree with every one of her takes.
No, Janet should be the Pobo, and Lisa should be the manager.
Makes sense.
That's what we've seen from this. And BK could be the 3-hole hitter.
Hey, could it get a whole lot worse, Alex?
Yeah, actually, it probably could. I watched the Rockies play, and it probably could be so much worse than this.
I mean, I watched the White Sox. I got to tell you, they looked better.
Yeah.
That team looks better than our team did here in St. Louis.
Wherever he was sitting, I want to be there. Nice breeze, blowing on the wind chimes. Got to imagine he's sitting in his rocking chair outside.
What's your ideal day on a day like today?
Today's
Alex?
like what I'm doing?
What are you doing on a day like today?
Go home, crack open a nice seltzer, let the girls play on a trampoline, and just sit.
Just hang out in the back?
Hang out in the backyard.
I think I might go
Maybe take the shirt off.
There's a Good News Brewery right down the street from us in St. Charles. They've got a nice patio in the back. They make some wood-fired pizzas out there. Just have a cold one, grab a beer, hang out with baby boy.
That sounds nice.
Take the wife over there.
Don't take your kid to a brewery, okay?
There's nothing wrong with taking a kid to a brewery.
Come on, man.
Drink in moderation.
Take him to Anheuser-Busch. Let them walk around there.
Charles, man, I'm across the river. You know people that are across the river never go on the other side of the river.
For some reason, I got family that are like, no, we can't come over here.
Yeah, that's how it works. All right, we continue with the BK and Ferrario take Purge on the other side. T-Bone's doing great work trying to get to some of those. The mic drop features on the 101 ESPN app. We got about 20 minutes left here on BK and Ferrario.
Terry Henderson here with a Sports Center update brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. The Cardinals will be back in action tonight. 7:10 will be first pitch. Lance Lynn will be on the mound for St. Louis. And tonight here on 101 ESPN, we got the NBA playoffs for you. Pacers versus Knicks Game 3 as the Knicks look to go up 3-0. We'll have pregame coverage starting at 5:30. This Sports Update is brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, independent Paramount Air Heating and Air Conditioning dealer.
It's Take Purge Day here on BK and Ferrario. If you're not familiar, it's a very simple game. You've seen the movie, The Purge. Once a year, they get out all of the potential crimes that they like to commit for that year, and then they believe, theoretically speaking at least, that that'll get it out of your system. That's what we do here on BK and Ferrario. Occasionally, you just got to say what needs to be said. So today, we've been spending most of the day talking about what we believe is wrong with the St. Louis Cardinals. We've been hearing from you via the Mic Drop feature on the 101 ESPN app. If you guys have missed any of the show today, be sure to check it out on the podcast page. 101ESPN.com and the free 101 ESPN app is where you can go to find it. It's all presented by
Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers.
Alex, we also had a great conversation a little bit earlier with Al Avila, former Major League Baseball general manager. He was a part of a significant rebuild in Detroit where they still haven't seen the end of it, unfortunately. And by the end, he got fired because they didn't see it through. But he was able to discuss with us why you would go into a rebuild. And honestly, a lot of what he described is where the Cardinals are today. So if you missed any of that, also check it out on the podcast page. But right now, it is part of the Take Purge. We are hearing from you guys. Let's go to the Mic Drop feature on the 101 ESPN app, and let's hear from Scott.
Why isn't Randy Flores getting any blame? He's the head of drafting and development. We keep drafting Nick Plummer, Jake Woodford, all these guys, Delvin Perez, who are constant misses, while other teams are drafting behind us, drafting Walker Buehler, Ke'Bryan Hayes, Riley for the Braves, all these good, talented players, Brandon Steer, and developing those players into good players while we seem to miss on everybody we draft on. There's where the problem lies. It's drafting and developing, and Randy Flores is the major issue in this.
And let me tell you something. Don't go down that dark alley of looking at drafts and finding out who you could have drafted, because I've lost a lot of sleep at night over the Blues' mistakes in the draft. But we don't push back on the Purge. We've made that very clear. But Randy Flores is not in charge of player development.
No, he's not, and that's where I kind of would diverge from this specific take. I'm not pushing back against it. Hey, everybody
Development
is
a problem.
Everybody is fair game in terms of who deserves criticism for where the Cardinals are today. Well, if you had a hand in building this in any way, you deserve some criticism. It's fair to critique what they've done in the past. If we put on a show on any given day, it's fair to critique any of us if you think the show was crap, because we all had some kind of a hand in that show going to crap that day. I think the same thing is true for the Cardinals. Yeah, most of it's deserved to go to me. Point the fingers here. But after that, everybody has a little bit of blame in that. For the Cardinals, I think one of the reasons why I'm not going to go all in on criticizing Flo is because, man, most of the guys... Yeah, I called him Flo. Most of the guys that they draft...
Like from Progressive?
Most of the guys that they draft end up having significant prospect rankings years after they were drafted. So the third-party community that assesses these kinds of things typically end up saying, yeah, Cardinals got it right there. And then it's about developing and getting the most out of them at the major league level. And that becomes no longer his job. He hands them off to other people within the organization where he says, hey, this guy is the best person that we can take at this pick, given what we need. Now I'm going to hand him over to everybody else in our organization that is a part of the development path, and it's up to you guys to get the most out of them, to develop them into the player and the person that they need to be at the big league level. And a lot of the time, honestly, they have done a pretty good job of it. They get them up to the big leagues, and they're still highly ranked in the prospect status. 2016 first-round pick, Dylan Carlson, high-ranked prospect, dude, but seen as a floor prospect. He's going to be a good player, maybe never an elite one. Same thing for Nolan Gorman, where he was highly ranked, top 40 prospect in Major League Baseball by third-party different publications out there. Jordan Walker, top 10 prospect in Major League Baseball. But then they get to the big league level, and that starts coming down, where people start saying, I don't know that he's going to reach the expectations that we had. I don't know if that guy's going to reach the ceiling of what we were expecting. I don't know. Jordan Walker might have a ground ball issue that we didn't really necessarily see sustaining the way that it has so far. That's where things go awry. So I don't know for me if it's Flores that I would be criticizing. He's everybody's fair game, but I think he's done a pretty good job of drafting for the most part.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think any of the draft picks that you've seen with Flores have been busts. I mean, busts would be like you don't see them get major league opportunities. And all of at least the first round picks we're talking about are guys that at least got a shot. There was a steep decline once you got closer and closer to the major leagues, which that to me is all development. But again, that's if we're pushing back. We're not pushing back.
And somebody on the text line said, BK, he wasn't officially in charge of the drafts at those times. Fair. He was promoted after the 2018 season. And so guys that he was in charge of include Gorman, Walker, Jerpy, Chase Davis. Like I think we've seen a little bit of a change in the approach for them under Flores, where they are going more for ceiling as opposed to floor. Now, McGreevy kind of went back to the floor thing. Thompson, floor thing. I think they're starting to emerge drafting different pitchers, and it's something that they've needed to do for a long time. But position player-wise, they've gone for ceiling more, and I think that's something that they should have been doing for a while. All right, let's go back out to the mic drop feature to hear from Dan with his take, Purge.
Mozeliak and the Cardinals have been operating under a philosophy of just get in and you have a chance, as they hearken back to 06 and 11. Are you kidding me? In 06 and 11, we had Pujols, Molina, Carpenter, Berkman, Edmonds, Rowland, real leaders, Holiday. We don't have that anymore. We had La Russa and Duncan, the best pitching coach-manager combo, perhaps in the history of baseball, who know how to manage things. Look at what Schilt, Ollie, Matheny did in their playoffs. They're rookie managers. You're not going anywhere with them.
You yelled at me on that part, so I'll let you take it.
I mean, at this point,
I mean, he said what you said about Goldie and Arenado.
Yeah.
You don't have a leader on this team. Wilson Contreras is your best leader, and now he's hurt.
And as someone said, he went and gone and broke his arm.
Yeah. Mason Wynn is a leader, but
I think your pitching staff has leaders, but
your pitching's been awesome. That's not a problem.
We've been in the clubhouse before, man. Like these guys are so segmented.
Well, pitchers have their group and hitters have their group.
Yeah, and I'm not talking about just the Cardinals. That's baseball in general. And the same thing is true in any sport. I've been in football locker rooms. The position groups are all typically kind of together, and that's the case for baseball as well. If you've got leaders within the pitching staff, that's the pitching staff's leaders. I think there is a lack of leadership, and I don't think it's the main cause for the problems here. The problem is they're not producing. But, yeah, if you want to point to the lack of leadership on the position player side, that's fine. I could see that. I think that's fair. Let's go back out one more on the mic drop feature. Brandon.
Is this you? Did you do another one?
Just had to stop mowing my lawn for Purge Day.
Hell yeah.
I push mow an acre. You know why? Because I'm from Missouri, and that's what we do. And the problem is this. For 12 years, we've let a man wearing capri pants run the most blue-collar organization in the country. It's time to get back to push mowing.
I mean, I understand the push mowing side of things because let me tell you, it is not fun to do.
Okay, Mr. I bought a riding limo.
Yeah, because it's not fun to do. I pushed that damn thing for the last 3 years.
I've got a question on the other side.
Is it about capri pants?
Yes, we'll do that next here on 101 ESPN. All right, we just got a mic drop. It was amazing. And it's part of our Take Purge today. And if you've missed any of them, I think it's been a great show. I've enjoyed every second of it.
I feel better. I heard some dark stuff.
Actually, well, I have heard some dark stuff and some wild stuff, but I do feel better today. I feel like I'm in a larger group of comrades after today.
Yeah, 101ESPN.com, the free 101 ESPN app is where you go to find it. That's where the podcast page is. It's all presented by
Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers.
I think the show today is worth going back and listening to. You want to watch any of it, you can see our reactions live as we listen to your Take Purges on YouTube at youtube.com/101ESPNSTL. While you're there, do me a favor, hit that like button. It looks like this, just in the corner. Just hit that like button. That helps other people be able to see what we're trying to do here.
Drop a tongue emoji.
Hit the subscribe button as well. We've got almost 5,000 subscribe. Super helpful if you guys can be a part of that. So if we can get to 5,000 subscribers, Alex.
10.
That'd be great for us.
10.
All right. The mic drop that I referenced, though, he said, hey, Mo's been running this organization while wearing capris. I don't care what John Mozeliak wears. I don't care what anybody wears. Wear whatever makes you feel comfortable. I don't think that the outfits that Mo wears is necessarily causing a disconnect with the fan base, but I do think it is a symptom of I don't think a lot of Cardinals fans have ever really connected with Mo. For whatever reason. I don't think people give him credit for what happened in 2011. They view that as Walt Jocketty's team, not John Mozeliak's team. I don't think they've enjoyed watching Cardinals baseball basically since 2016. I think he is connected for whatever reason to the analytics era. I think, I don't know why this is, but I think people would, if Theo Epstein were the president of baseball operations, he has a way of explaining things that just feels a little different.
Well, look at Doug Armstrong.
Than when Mo's in charge. But the reason I bring up Theo and Mo as a comparison is because, Theo was the young whiz kid. He was the guy that brought analytics to the Red Sox and then continued to do so with Chicago. But he hires people, he hired Madden as the manager in Chicago when they were ready to win, and people look at Madden, and I don't know how he shed the idea of him being an analytics guy, but he was the manager in Tampa when they were all in on analytics. He was the manager in Chicago when they were all in on analytics. But when those are the people that are the forward-facing individuals, it feels a little different than when Mo is the one that's a forward-facing individual. So while the mic drop was funny and the way that he framed it was laughable, but I think he did get to something there of why there does seem to be a little bit of a disconnect between the fan base and the current regime in charge.
Correct me if I'm wrong, and I was young at the time, so I don't remember I remember things now, but Walt Jocketty was really never the front face of the Cardinals. Tony La Russa was that guy. It was never about the president of baseball operations or GM. It was always about, hey, who's in charge? That's the guy that we're looking towards to fix this team. And he always handled the media, TLR, where it was bad, it was good. That's who you were going to with questions. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago. It just does not benefit Mo when you use the tone that he uses. The tone that comes out, we know you're honestly spitting image of each other. When the tone comes out well, that's a dumb question, you should know that. That doesn't bode well for the fan base that really they just want upfront honesty. They want exclusivity to what is taking place right now with the team. And if you're not going to provide that, if you're going to play coy and say, well, we just need to be patient, it's going to be fine, we know what's going on, and it doesn't work out, well, then it just makes you look like you don't know what's going on.
Yeah, I think our text line is a representative of this, and I have a lot of the same issues that Mo does in terms of how I communicate. I get it. And I'm not even saying that self
all caps, arrogance.
I think sometimes it would help if he just I think sometimes he's come on our airwaves, and there have been times where we've had conversations with Mo where we see it on the text line where people are like, oh, I appreciated that. He gave honest answers. I think sometimes he doesn't do that enough. Gersh, when he came on with us, I think he answered questions in an honest way that was approachable for fans. That fans appreciate that, dude. They just want to be talked to like they're humans. And you think they understand, or you feel like they understand what you're going through right now. I think sometimes that doesn't happen with this organization. So I think that's part of the problem.
You got to have a pulse for it. And when you come out when the offense is as bad as it was and continue to use the phrase be patient, you got to understand that is the wrong pulse to take with this group of fans at this time of the season.
Cardinals back in action this weekend. They've got 3 more games against the Milwaukee Brewers. Yeah. Lynn, Gibson, and Michaelis will take the mound in this 3-game series against Milwaukee. Alex, how many of these do they win?
I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. I say they win 1.
That's where I'm at.
I think they lose 3 or 4.
And the last one will be on the getaway day when the lineup is trash and you're like, oh my God, really?
Is there a difference between the lineup on getaway day?
See what they're able to do this weekend. They're on national television tomorrow on Fox. Big Fox.
Isn't Waino on the call for that? Or is that the Cards-Cubs game?
I'm not sure. But the Cardinals are on Fox tomorrow. So we'll go ahead and see what that looks like. We will be back on Monday at 11 a.m. Enjoy the weekend. It looks like it's going to be unbelievable weather. So enjoy it, whether you're watching the Cardinals game or just going outside, enjoying the family. We will talk to you guys on Monday. The Fast Lane's coming up next. You're on 101 ESPN.
I push mow an acre. You know why? Because I'm from Missouri, and that's what we do.